completely dry. We do still have some showers to talk about, mostly towards the west and northwest of the UK. These tending to be light, they'll move on quickly enough, and for many it is dry overnight with clear spells. The lengthiest clear spells for the Midlands, the south and southeast of England, northeast Scotland as well, where we do have clear skies overnight, temperatures dipping into the low double figures or high single figures. A few mist patches forming by dawn into the southeast of England, for example, but they'll disappear soon enough. Across Wales and the southwest, some patchy cloud to begin things. Northern England also areas of cloud floating around, but the cloudiest place most likely Northern Ireland, where there will be some light showers, and there'll also be a scattering of light showers across parts of Scotland, particularly towards the west and southwest. Best of any brightness early on the far north of Scotland. Now, Saturday is looking fine for many. A lot of bright weather around, particularly towards the east, where there'll be spells of sunshine. In the west, increasingly cloudy skies, particularly later on, and a freshening breeze. That's going to make it feel a little cooler, but that breeze coming from the south will import higher temperatures, 24 Celsius likely in the southeast. And then we get into Saturday night, and with that mild source of air, it's going to be a mild night for many, with temperatures in the mid-teens in places. But Sunday starts off largely dry. However, we do have an area of rain moving in from the west, and it's going to be an unsettled week next week.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's our biggest Great British giveaway to date. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas and has all of the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that any adventures you take in your new motorhome are taken in style. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Britain's Newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
Good morning, Graham. What's your view on the latest comments about the gender of the next James Bond? Should there be one?
Well, there obviously should be a James Bond, but it should never be a woman. I think this is something that was in the media and the press some years ago that's kind of been dragged up to a degree. It's a nonsense. It was a nonsense when it was first spoken about some years ago, and it's just as big a nonsense now. It needs to be a 6-foot-tall, dark-haired, strapping, middle-aged guy. I say middle, I mean talking about 32.
Graham,
He's quite young in my book.
Well, but I mean, look, Graham, what I'd say is that a lot of these. I mean, I know Amazon, I believe, have bought the rights to James Bond now. I mean, you've seen what they've done with some of their other shows. I'm not so convinced they're not going to go down this super woke, what I would call woke route. Do they really need to reinvent James Bond though? Because we've had so many iterations of him. They pretty much killed him off in the last movie. Do we need to reinvent the idea of James Bond, or should James Bond just retire? Should we say, actually, do you know what? We've had James Bond for almost 100 years. Actually, should we let this character rest for at least a bit of time, or maybe just retire the character before it gets destroyed by modern reinventions of it?
Well, I think there's always going to be a market. There's always going to be an audience for James Bond if those films are made the correct way. I mean, you've got a perfect blueprint. If you look at the Bond films in the 60s, and you follow that as a blueprint, you can't go wrong, because most of them are based on Ian Fleming, and it's the best Bond films are the ones that are based on Fleming's books quite closely.
GB News, the People's Channel.
A very, very good afternoon to you. It's 3 p.m. and a happy Friday. And welcome to the Martin Daubney Show. Here on GB News, broadcasting live and across the UK. Bring you all the very latest news, debate and analysis on yet another quiet news day. Coming up on the show today, Angela Rayner has been erased. Labour's under fire. Deputy Leader Angela Rayner has finally been forced to resign for breaching the ministerial code. She blamed the media. The defenders blamed snobbery. But in the end, Miss Rayner simply ran out of road and ran out of excuses. What does this mean next for a Labour Party in complete meltdown? And Keir Starmer, meanwhile, has commenced a major reshuffle of his cabinet, with the House of Commons leader Lucy Powell being sacked just a short moment ago. We'll be live on Downing Street. It's turning into a nightmare on Downing Street for the Prime Minister throughout the show.
And say, you are the last chance we've got to get this country back on track. We are the last chance the country's got to get this country back on track.
Another reform conference a short while ago, Nigel Farage roared, as you just heard, we're all ships rising on a turquoise tide heading towards winning the next general election in 2027. We'll be live from Brum and we'll be taking live speeches from Zia Joseph and also speaking to the Red Wall Rottweiler Lee Anderson and a first sit down with Nadine Dorries. And Buckingham Palace has announced the Duchess of Kent has died at the age of 92. The Prince and Princess of Wales described her as a much-missed member of the family, and we'll bring you more updates on that throughout the afternoon. And that's all coming up on your show in the next hour. Just another quiet news day, isn't it? You know, there hasn't been a quiet news day since Rishi Sunak called that general election way back now in the midst of the time in May 2024 when he was soaked on Downing Street. Things can only get wetter. Well, today on Downing Street, another drama unfolds, a reshuffle turning into a bloodbath precipitated by the fall of the Deputy PM, Angela Rayner. Who's next for the chop? Who's next for the reshuffle? Will it make any difference? Is it like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic? And talking of the sea, meanwhile, the tide is rising in Birmingham. The turquoise tidal wave swept into town. Nigel Farage moved his speech hours early to react to that dramatic resignation or sacking of the Deputy PM. But with still plenty more meat left on the bone for you to enjoy with us today. We'll have Zia Yusuf, the new head of policy, joining us on the show, the Red Wall Rottweiler Chief Party Whip, Lee Anderson, and a first sit down with Nadine Dorries, the defector from the Conservatives, who dramatically declared the Conservative Party is dead. Don't go anywhere for the next 3 hours. It's going to be unmissable political drama. Get in touch usual ways, gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so. But now it's your headlines, and here's Aaron Armstrong.
Thanks very much indeed, Martin. Good afternoon to you. Our top stories. Angela Rayner has resigned as Deputy Prime Minister and Housing Secretary after admitting she should have paid more stamp duty on a flat in Hove. In a resignation letter, she said she deeply regretted the decision to not seek further specialist tax advice. She's also quit her elected position as Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. And the Prime Minister's independent ethics advisor, Sir Laurie Magnus, said Ms Rayner was in breach of the ministerial code despite having acted with integrity. In a handwritten letter, Sir Keir Starmer told Angela Rayner he was very sad her time in government had come to an end and he had nothing but admiration for her. A major cabinet reshuffle is underway. It's understood Lucy Powell, the Leader of the Commons, and the Secretary of State for Scotland, Ian Murray, are to leave their posts. Conservative Party Chairman Kevin Hollingrake says Ms Rayner only admitted wrongdoing because of media scrutiny.
I don't think she had any choice. I think the most damning aspect of this, if you look at what the independent advisor said, is this only came to light because of intense public scrutiny. It wasn't because Angela Rayner held her hands up to this. So I think she had no choice. I think it leaves the Labour Party in a complete mess. It leaves questions that need to be answered by Keir Starmer, what he knew and when.
Reform UK leader Nigel Farage says Angela Rayner's resignation over her tax affairs screams to entitlement. Speaking at the party's annual conference, Mr Farage said he brought his speech forward after the Deputy Prime Minister's resignation, which he says demonstrates the government's deep in crisis and not fit to govern. He says Sir Keir Starmer's cabinet is full of wholly unqualified people.
from being the Housing Secretary and avoiding £40,000 of council tax. And it screams to entitlement. It screams to a government that, despite all the promises that this would be a new, different kind of politics, is as bad, if not worse, than the one that went before.
Well, earlier today, Sir Keir Starmer's investment minister resigned in the latest blow to his government. Baroness Gustafsson, a cyber security entrepreneur, was given a peerage and brought into government by the Prime Minister last October. He described her as an accomplished entrepreneur who brings invaluable experience to the role. Now, it's not certain whether the resignation is part of the wider shuffle linked to the investigation into Angela Rayner. Authorities in Portugal say 3 British nationals are among 16 people who died in a funicular railway crash in Lisbon on Wednesday. The victims, who've not been named, were a 36-year-old woman and 2 men aged 82 and 44. More than 20 other people were injured, with 5 in a critical condition. Investigators have completed a preliminary probe into the crash and expect to release the findings imminently. Vladimir Putin says any foreign troops in Ukraine would be legal targets for Russian strikes. It comes after 26 countries, part of the so-called Coalition of the Willing, said they'd commit troops to Ukraine for post-war security at a meeting in Paris yesterday. The Russian leader also re-invited Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, to go to Moscow for peace talks, claiming he'd provide security for the Ukrainian leader. The average UK house price jumped to a new record high in August following 3 month-on-month rises in a row. Typical property prices are approaching £300,000. The report from Halifax found the average UK house price increased by 0.3% month-on-month to August, following monthly rises of 0.4% in June and 0.1% in July. However, the annual pace of house price growth slowed to 2.2% in August, down from those numbers in July and June. Buckingham Palace has announced with deep sorrow the death of the Duchess of Kent at the age of 92. She was married to Queen Elizabeth's cousin, the Duke of Kent, and was perhaps best known for presenting the winners' trophies at Wimbledon for many years. Now, later in life, she stepped back from her public duties and worked incognito as a music teacher in state primary schools. Buckingham Palace says the royal family will remember her passion for music and empathy for young people. The Prime Minister says the Duchess brought compassion, dignity and a human touch to everything she did, as he paid tribute to her following her death. Those are your headlines. I'll be back with more in half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GBNews Financial Report.
Let's take a look at the markets for you. The pound buys you $1.35 and €1.15. The price of gold is £2,653.43 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 trading currently at 9,251 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GBNews Financial Report.
Well, strap yourselves in. 3 hours of politics rollercoaster coming your way. A major cabinet reshuffle is presently underway following the resignation of the Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner earlier this morning. So far, it's been confirmed that Lucy Powell has been sacked as the leader of the House of Commons. Let's cross live now to our political editor, Christopher Hope, who joins us from Downing Street with all of the very latest. Chris, it's turning into a nightmare on Downing Street for the Labour Party as the turquoise tidal wave sweeps into Birmingham. What's all the very latest down there in Westminster?
Yes, hi Martin, welcome back to Downing Street. Yeah, I started the day having breakfast in Birmingham, had lunch in Downing Street and probably tea and supper too, because it's all eyes are back on number 10 Downing Street. I can confirm that Ian Murray, the Scottish Secretary, has left the government. He's put a statement out on his social feed. We don't know if he was sacked, because we do know that Lucy Powell, the leader of the House of Commons, she's been sacked within the past hour. But Ian Murray, it says here, is hugely disappointed to be leaving the government with so much done and so much more to do. He looked forward to spending more time with his family, of course, and a huge thanks to his junior team. So the fact he's hugely disappointed to leave the government suggests he may have been sacked, but again, I don't know if that's the case. I've texted him to ask him. I'll bring that to you as soon as I can. But if you take a step back here, what we have now, we have 6 jobs going begging in government. Angela Rayner, of course, the Housing Secretary and Deputy Leader, and also she's quit her job as Deputy Leader, so a big job there. Lucy Powell, the Leader of the House of Commons, a vital job in keeping the backbenchers happy, in dealing with the government programme, in avoiding, frankly, unnecessary climbs down by the government, as we saw over the benefit issue in the summer. Ian Murray, he's gone. That's 3 cabinet ministers are now gone. That is 3 vacancies at the very top table of this government. Added to that, Potti Gustafsson, she's the investment minister. She has resigned earlier today. Add to that, we've got jobs in the homelessness minister and a job in the net zero department. So as things stand, there are 6 jobs, 3 of them the biggest jobs in government going. All we know so far is Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, she is safe. There are reports, and they are simply reports, not confirmed, no response yet, that Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, could be on the move. We'll wait and see. I'm here in Downing Street with my half an eye on the big gates at the end of the road here. If anyone walks down that street, we know they're being appointed. But right now we're at the very difficult stage of the hiring, of the firing or resigning stage, when people are being told to move or told to move on. That's why reshuffles are a game, Martin, of 3-dimensional chess. You move one person from someplace and someone somewhere else. And often these ministers, they've been there for 14 months, 15 months. They don't want to go. There's more to do. You heard that there from Ian Murray, the Scottish Secretary, now removed from that job or now left that job. They want to stay where they are, and that's why it's very complicated and not easy to do. And the longer it goes on, the more question marks that will be raised about the authority of the Prime Minister. A swift reshuffle looks organised, looks like the guy's in charge. There are question marks already for the Tory party about why Angela Rayner was allowed to stay on for so long. Was it weakness of Sir Keir Starmer not to fire her as soon as the claims emerged of her avoiding as much as £40,000 in stamp duty? As it was, it dragged on for a week. It overshadowed the reset, the relaunch of this government back on Monday with some advisor jobs changing hands. But all eyes now on who else is leaving, and there is a reporting, and just reporting, not confirmed, that Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, could be on the move.
On the move? On the move where? Would that be part of the one in, one out return deal? Perhaps we'll send her back to Calais?
Obviously, you're joking, Martin. On the move, we don't know where, and we don't know if it's true. What I'm saying to you right now is febrile. People aren't commenting, isn't clear what's happening, but there are all sorts of reports out there, and that is part of the speculation on reshuffle day. Again, not confirmed.
This is astonishing. We're turning the page on 14 years of Tory chaos. We were told we're going to fix the foundations. The adults are back in the room. Chris Hope, this is going to be talked about for decades to come as an exercise on political car crash management. It's a total and utter unmitigated disaster for the Labour Party, no matter how you try and spin it.
I think that is overstating it, Martin. I mean, we were expecting a reshuffle about now. There normally is one 15 months into a new government. It was likely. It's been brought forward possibly by the resignation of Angela Rayner. I think, you know, let's take a step back here. This party has got a majority of 160 in the House of Commons. It's going nowhere. Nigel Farage told his members and supporters at that conference in Birmingham that there's a 30 or 40% chance of this government collapsing in 2027. Well, the people behind me will completely disagree with that and say, why would we go anywhere? This is simply trying to get the right people into the right jobs. Clearly has not gone well on the small boats crisis. They may feel they want someone who is better communicating what's going on there. Again, we'll wait and see if Yvette Cooper's on the move. But the jobs we do know are big jobs. Angela Rayner, the Housing Secretary, so important to get those new homes built. That bill is still stuck in the House of Lords, the bill to remove various restrictions on getting new building going. That is vital to get that through. Lucy Lucy Powell, the government almost lost control of its backbenches over benefit reforms. And don't forget, Lucy Powell also said on TV how accused someone raising the issue of small boats as a dog whistle. That went down very badly, of course, amongst Labour MPs as much as other people too. And Ian Murray, the Scottish Secretary, a key job, of course, going into the elections next May. So all those three jobs are key. And when some jobs become vacant, other people are moved, and that's where we are at the moment. We're waiting to see how it plays out.
OK, Chris, I hope you're going to be a very, very busy man. You better get yourself a can of energy drink. I still think you'll be able to buy one. I think you're over 16 years of age at present. Thank you very much. I get some reaction now from a Labour voice. I'm joined in the studio by the businessman and the former Labour candidate, Kevin Craig. Kevin, a pleasure to see you. You were shaking your head there when I was saying this is a mitigated disaster for the Labour Party. Tell me why I'm wrong. It seems like an awful day. Why am I wrong?
I just think, Martin, to call it a nightmare. One thing really important that you didn't say, in going with the recommendation of the independent advisor, taking a really difficult decision and accepting that Angela Rayner has to go, this is what people voted for in Keir Starmer. Under the Tories, who neither of us, I think, have a huge regard for, people were hanging on for days, weeks, months. And in this instance, when the independent advisor gave the opinion, and if viewers and listeners read that opinion, some of it's very complimentary towards Angela Rayner, but at the end of the day, no matter about intentions, she didn't pay the tax due. As a housing minister, local government lead, it can't happen. And Keir Starmer said, no matter how painful, the guy's written a 3-page handwritten note to her, this is really painful for him, but he knows one of the reasons Labour's got this big but thin majority is people had had enough of Tory sleaze. And that's why, unfortunately, this decision had to happen. It's not a nightmare, Martin. A reshuffle was already coming. Because why? The Labour government in the polls is not where it could and should be. And, of course, Starmer's going to change it up.
Not where it could be. You could practically throw the ratings off the White Cliffs of Dover.
I know,
it's an absolutely spectacular collapse, the likes of which we've never seen. And I put it to you, that this began very early on, and Angela Rayner has gone. She had to go. She completely and utterly had to go. But right from the early days, it was free gear Keir, it was cronyism. We've seen it from the very beginning. We were promised no more of this nonsense.
Yeah, and
from the very first weeks of this government, it's been non-stop nonsense.
No, that's a characterisation. I'm going to challenge that. If you look at the resignations there have been in this government, this is what people voted for. Even the slightest whiff. People were sacked as ministers at the suspicion or the look of something. It's not about COVID fast lanes and corruption and bungs. It's nowhere near that. So desperate is Keir Starmer to have a different kind of politics. And it is fair to say...
We've got a different kind of politics.
We have, yeah.
It's total chaos.
No, we've got an NHS, Martin, chucking millions of more appointments out. Why aren't we talking about that more often?
Because the vote
Slow
is on.
progress.
Because the vote is on. And that's the problem that the Labour Party have got. All your eggs in the NHS basket. It's been totally overtaken by the small boats chaos, by the immigration nightmare that's facing the country, by the dire state of the economy precipitated by the Chancellor, who we hear is one of the people who survived. Maybe that's a mistake.
The economy's not dire, Martin. As a businessman employing people across the country in a business that's created and is worth millions and created loads of value to the economy is not in a dire situation. We have been one of the fastest growing economies in the G7, and the business confidence, the business community, no one's denying that national insurance wasn't a sting in the tail. Let me tell you, I didn't know that was coming, and I'm close to the top of the party. That cost me 6 figures, but it was the right thing to do to steady the ship. And 1 year in, let the country judge us after 5, not 1 year.
Well, I don't know if that's possible at the moment. We live in a very,
Why isn't it not possible, Martin?
Because we live in a very, very fast-moving world, and it's fast-moving down a cliff for the Labour Party. No. And let's look ahead to November the 26th. There'll be no crumbs of comfort for people like you, for people watching this channel. The budget is looking like it's going to be carnage, Martin, because we simply have no money.
Listen,
you talk about Liz Truss crashing the economy.
Yes.
You know, our year bonds are worse now.
Martin,
we're heading for a bigger national debt. We can barely afford to service our own national debt interest rates.
OK, no mention there of the interest rate decreases that have happened since Labour's in government. No mention there of the millions of GBNews listeners and viewers who've benefited from increases in the national living wage. Slow progress, no taxes directly on working people. Down the pub, I think that means if you earn less than 100 grand in this country, you're not going to get direct taxes on you. But big corporations, the banks are looking nervously over their shoulder. I love our banking sector. Can they pay a bit more? Online gaming, where the tariffs, proper taxes are not paid, they're shovelled offshore. These are things being looked at because we are undoing 14 years of mess.
But Kev, you talk about going down the pub, there'll be none left. pubs, hospitality are the ones that have been annihilated by national insurance hikes, by minimum wage hikes, by workers' rights hikes that mean that landlords are responsible for every piece of tittle-tattle mentioned on the premises. You know, there are parts of the budget and the change by Rachel Reeves, you have to admit, have been a disaster for the British economy.
Some of them were challenging, and the national insurance rise in particular was tough for people. But the big picture, I'm glad you bring up Liz Truss, because overnight she hiked up mortgages and hundreds of pounds in the pockets of listeners and viewers of this channel. That's not going to happen under Labour. Let's talk about some of the other scams that have fallen already today. Angela Rayner had to go, but you said to me before the show started, you think she could have remained in her post. How? So what I said to you, Martin, is that in her post as Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, which I'm sorry because that was elected by the broader Labour Party membership, she has paid the price today as Deputy Prime Minister and with Secretary of State responsibilities for housing and local government. That couldn't carry on, and that's the difference under Labour. Short, sharp resignations. I was disappointed that as someone, she was elected by the Labour movement, and I think she would have still been re-elected. People would have said she's made a mistake and she's put her hands up. That's why I was disappointed.
So you think, despite the fact that she's admitted to underpaying stamp duty by 40 grand, despite the fact she claimed to receive advice which the legal firm know nothing about, a catalogue of errors, I suspect there's more to come from this even now. You think, despite all of that, the Labour membership would still have voted her back in?
Yeah, I think they would have seen that she made... And
That's
it's in that
blind
letter.
loyalty.
Hang on, it's not blind loyalty, because I'm here saying to you, no matter how tough it is, it was the right decision she went. It's different under Labour. But as the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, I think that's a shame, because I think that the membership will understand she's made a mistake and she's held her hands up.
Let's talk about Lucy Powell. Her fingerprints, of course, were all over the attempt to cut benefits, which completely failed because of a backlash from the backbenchers. But there's a feeling that she was on the Labour list popularity rankings. She's very, very disliked by the membership. She's the least popular minister amongst the Labour Party membership of them all.
Well, I think, and first thing I want to say to Lucy Powell is really hard-working member of Parliament. What I always say is about all people, you know, Reform MPs, whatever, that it's hard in politics and it's a tough day for her. But yes, the House of Commons welfare votes were not a good moment, so it's not surprising.
Okay, now, just being told we're about to go back to Birmingham to the Reform Conference. We've got Nadine Dorries being wired up as we speak. But in the meantime, we're going to keep this conversation going back here. There'll be plenty from Birmingham throughout the rest of the show. Have no fear about that. We've got Zia Yousaf going on. In fact, here she is herself. It's our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, with that new arrival, Nadine Dorries.
Yes, well, good afternoon from Reform in Birmingham. They unveiled last night, didn't they, quite a spectacular defection. Nadine Dorries, of course, former Culture Secretary, former Boris Johnson loyalist, has moved over to Reform. Nadine, thank you very much for talking to us on GB News. You were involved with the Conservative Party for 3 decades. You said yesterday that the Conservative Party is dead. Why did you say that, first of all? And secondly, what was the single point at which you think things went wrong for them?
Well, the single point where it went wrong, to take your last point first, was when Boris Johnson was removed as Prime Minister. And I think, you know, if a party removes an election-winning Prime Minister once, Margaret Thatcher, it can be seen as a big mistake. When they do it twice and then elect duds in their place, and then elect Kemi Badenoch to lead the Conservative Party, who hasn't announced a policy of any substance in the 12 months that she's been leader, you kind of realise that if a party can't function itself, it can't run the country. And I think that, you know, what we're seeing now with the Labour Party, which is falling apart, it will split into two. Angela Rayner will become part of the far left movement with Jeremy Corbyn, pro-Gaza independence, probably unite with Polanski from the Greens, who's a left-wing firebrand. We're going to see a split in the Labour Party. We've had that split in the Conservative Party, and believe me, no one knows better than I do. We've had that split and those divisions in the Conservative Party for a very long time. And, you know, politics has moved on. Thanks partly to GBNews, people are better informed, people know more about what's going on, they're hearing the other side of the story. Politics has very much moved on now, and the Conservative Party hasn't, and neither has Labour. And I think both parties have shown that when they are tested, when they are brought to government, they just can't do it. They can't function as governing parties in any way which is effective, and they can't deliver. So that's why I'm with reform now, because I think we're at a very dangerous point in our history. You know, when you're paying 5.7% interest on your debt, the message is very clear. The global economic community think as a country, a government cannot manage your public finances and cannot manage public spending. Well, you know, I lived through the 70s. This is a road that leads to a bad place. And I feel that now, both Nigel Farage and Reform are the party of the moment.
So you said that you think it all went wrong when they got rid of Boris Johnson. I interviewed Boris Johnson for GBNews just a couple of days ago. He totally agrees with you. He said that he would have won the election. But the difference is that he feels that the Conservatives can come back from this. I suspect he still feels that he's got unfinished business. You have abandoned them, haven't you? What? You've given up. You've given up on Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson hasn't given up.
I'm seeing, you know, Boris and I are good friends, and we are throughout this. You know, that makes no difference.
You think there's no way back for Boris Johnson, though?
So I think there's room for all great men and women of talent in politics because the country needs them. The problem with the Conservative Party is they needed Boris Johnson at the last election and they blocked him, they kept him out. And a party that behaves in that way, that is not doing what is the right thing to do for the party and the country, they could have beaten Labour if they'd had Boris Johnson. The party that behaves in that, there's something fundamentally and seriously wrong. Boris Johnson has not been welcomed back into the Conservative Party since. The fact that we lost so badly to Labour was purely as a result of Conservative MPs removing an election-winning Prime Minister. Now, Boris is always going to be loyal to the Conservative Party. He will have to be. He's a former Prime Minister. I'm not. I've decided that now is the time for me to come to the aid of the Reform Party and to pledge the loyalty I pledged to Boris and to the Conservatives to Reform, because there is a job to do. And Reform are the only party with answers to some of the really serious problems we're facing, whether it's law and order, illegal migration, that they've got serious answers to serious problems. No one else has.
Can I ask you specifically about the Online Safety Act? That was something that you worked on very hard. You felt very strongly about it. You were unhappy when it was weakened as you saw it. Nigel Farage has just gone back from the States where he's telling the world that the Online Safety Act is not fit for purpose, that it should be scrapped, suggesting that America leans on our government. Surely you must be concerned about that, because you did this, did you not? Because it's all about keeping children safe.
The Online
children.
Safety Act is on my shoulders. I was the minister who took it to the House of Commons, so I hold my hands up to that. But by the time it was finished with by both Rishi Sunak's government and Keir Starmer's, it became a Christmas tree bill that people had hung a lot of baubles on that completely diluted the focus on children. There should be no clause in that bill that doesn't have the word children in it. For me, it's about protecting children. Look, I'm the first to say we cannot police the internet. We can't do it. It's impossible. We have to live with the changing world, and it's part of that. But for me, it was always about protecting young girls, young boys from having their phones bombarded with hardcore, really reprehensible porn, from having young girls bombarded with messages about eating disorders, because the algorithm knows who they are. And it's always been very simple for me. The tech companies can tell how old someone is who is using their sites. For me, it was always about the tech companies taking responsibility when it comes to children. And that's what the bill was about. That was my focus on the bill. And you know, if you listen to interviews that I've done, articles I've written on the online safety bill, that was always my focus.
But the tech companies failed. They failed to police themselves, though, haven't they? So
they have.
Something has had to be done.
I know Nigel and I will have conversations about this, and we will disagree on issues around the online safety bill. But you know, I'm in Reform now, and Nigel and I can have discussions about this. We'll have them privately. But you know, he recognises, he said himself when he was in America, you know, and he, I think in an interview just in the past 48 hours, he acknowledged he doesn't want our children to be in danger. He doesn't want our children taking their own lives. It's about our children and their safety. And for me, that's what it's always been about.
Well, I mean, Molly Russell's father takes a very different view, as you know. But just finally, the Lib Dems put up a Trump Tower sign on Reform HQ last night. They are calling for Nigel Farage to be registered on the Foreign Influence Register, saying that he's a Trump puppet. Do you worry at all? Clearly, Reform has the momentum here, but many people are not on board with everything that Donald Trump is doing. Do you not worry that there is a risk in being too closely associated with Donald Trump?
Nigel Farage has always been closely associated with Donald Trump. I don't agree on that at all.
But Labour basically is saying he's going bad-mouthing us in public. Lib Dems are saying he's not a patriot. This is the proof. What's your response to that?
Donald Trump is Donald Trump. He's just won a massive second election. He won the popular vote, and everybody knew who they were voting for. There's a lot of lessons to be learned from Trump about free speech, about how we cut public spending, about how we run government. There's a lot of lessons to be learned. I'm glad that Nigel Farage is close to Trump. I think it's a good and a useful thing.
Nadine Dorries, thank you very much for your time this afternoon on GB News. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Back to you in the studio.
Catherine Forster, superb stuff. The first sit down with the new arrival, Nadine Dorries, to Reform since her defection late last night. Let's get some reaction now back in the studio with the former Labour candidate, Kevin Craig. Kevin, let's talk in the first instance about Nadine Dorries saying the Tory party is dead, but joining the Reform Party. There are a few people out there, I have to say, are saying to me, is Reform just turning into a Conservative Part 2 party? The Brexit Party, when I was involved in that, full disclosure, there are quite a lot of lefties as well. Is it the right thing to do to make it just a Tory fan club? Is that the right way of putting it?
Well, I guess it's up to Reform to decide who it wants to accept in. I don't think there's a law that can stop anyone joining if they want. But when I last looked, not long ago, Martin, Nadine Dorries was upset that she hadn't been made a Tory peer. And had she got that peerage, there's no doubt she'd be sitting in the House of Lords now quite happily. And I think the one thing I really passionately agree with her about is that the battle of ideas and the vision of this country at the next election is going to be between two Prime Minister options. And I think it is going to be between Keir Starmer and Nigel Farage. And I think the Conservative Party, never mind all the noise this week, all the wind, the public is not yet ready to listen to them because they had 14 years for their go, and Nadine was a massive part of that.
On the specific part there, on the Online Safety Act, Catherine Forster, very well done, held her to account because, of course, Nigel Farage was in DC on Wednesday saying he'll completely throw that into the bin. One of the architects of that was Nadine Dorries. That was put to her then, and her defence was, I hold my hands up, I got my handprints on that one, but
please.
It was heavily modified by Rishi Sunak, it was heavily modified by Sir Keir Starmer. Her phrase was, it was a Christmas tree that had a lot of baubles added to it. She's blaming other people for what it became. Will that wash?
It doesn't wash. And if, I hold a very different view to you, Martin, on online safety. I know that you think there's no point, if I can summarise it, you don't think it's worth trying to regulate the internet. You think it's too far gone in many ways. I take a totally different view. But where I do think it's outrageous is that Nadine Dorries now says, nothing to do with me, Gov. That's quite opportunist.
I think actually the way we go about internet regulation is to educate children into the pitfalls rather than trying to stop them. When did censorship ever work? We're of a certain vintage.
Yeah.
You can't listen to the Sex Pistols. Ooh, I'll go and listen to the Sex Pistols. Everything you tell a teenager not to do, they will go and do it. I used to talk to teenagers in schools about porn addiction 10 years ago that you had to get around internet blocks. They cannot fix it with a blunderbuss Online Safety Act. But back to Nadine Dorries' comments earlier on, she was saying that the only person who can save Britain is Nigel Farage. Will her hopping into bed, metaphorically, with Mr Farage, do you think, give permission to a lot of shy Tories to go in and make it more of a mainstream movement now?
I think the notion that Nigel Farage is the only person that can save Britain is the biggest load of Horlicks I've heard in years, OK? He's unproven. His Reform Party has lost one of the 5 MPs. I'm looking forward now to the reshuffled Labour cabinet really holding him and his ideas to account. Why him and not the Tories? Because he has got momentum. He's got great poll numbers. Let's explore explore the views on foreign policy with Russia. Let's explore his plans for the NHS and more private insurance and a debate around NHS care at the point of entry. Let's have those discussions, because there isn't enough of that beyond the noise.
Kevin Gray, thanks for your company today. Thanks for your expertise. Always a pleasure to have your company here in Westminster. Cheers. Well, let's move on now. It's time for your latest news headlines. And here is... Oh, no, with Angela Rayner gone, what's next for the Labour Party? I'll be joined next by a political bookmaker to see who her replacement might be. What are the odds of Ed Miliband making it back into frontline politics as his deputy leader? You don't want to miss that. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. But first, here's your headlines. Aaron Armstrong.
Now, good afternoon. Our top stories from the GB newsroom. Angela Rayner has resigned from the government after admitting she should have paid more tax on a flat in East Sussex. She also quit her elected position as Deputy Labour leader. A major cabinet reshuffle is underway at Downing Street following that breaking news. Lucy Powell has been sacked as leader of the Commons, while Ian Murray is no longer Secretary of State for Scotland. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage says Angela Rayner's resignation over her tax affairs screams to entitlement. He brought his speech at Reform's party conference forward to address the news, saying it demonstrates the government is deep in crisis and not fit to govern. 3 British nationals are among 16 people to have died in the Lisbon funicular crash on Wednesday. Portuguese authorities say the victims, who haven't been named, are a 36-year-old woman and 2 men aged 82 and 44. And new figures suggest thousands of people who could benefit from the weight loss jab Mounjaro on the NHS are missing out because of funding issues. Those are your headlines. I'll have a full bulletin for you at the top of the next hour.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Odd shower for some during the rest of the day, but most places will be dry with increasingly clear spells, particularly across England and Wales. High pressure building from the south, keeping us largely settled heading into the weekend following what has been a very wet start to September. But that isn't to say it's going to be completely dry. We do still have some showers to talk about, mostly towards the west and northwest of the UK. These tending to be light, they'll move on quickly enough, and for many it is dry overnight with clear spells. The lengthiest clear spells for the Midlands, the south and southeast of England, northeast Scotland as well, where we do have clear skies overnight, temperatures dipping into the low double figures or high single figures. A few mist patches forming by dawn into the southeast of England, for example, but they'll disappear soon enough. Across Wales and the southwest, some patchy cloud to begin things. Northern England also areas of cloud floating around, but the cloudiest place most likely Northern Ireland, where there will be some light showers, and there'll also be a scattering of light showers across parts of Scotland, particularly towards the west and southwest. Best of any brightness early on the far north of Scotland. Now, Saturday is looking fine for many. A lot of bright weather around, particularly towards the east, where there'll be spells of sunshine. In the west, increasingly cloudy skies, particularly later on, and a freshening breeze. That's going to make it feel a little cooler, but that breeze coming from the south will import higher temperatures, 24 Celsius likely in the southeast. And then we get into Saturday night, and with that mild source of air, it's going to be a mild night for many, with temperatures in the mid-teens in places. But Sunday starts off largely dry. However, we do have an area of rain moving in from the west, and it's going to be an unsettled week next week.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A85 is closed near the Cruachan power station due to a collision. Motorists should use alternative routes and allow extra travel time. On the M62 westbound, a broken down vehicle at junction 28 is causing disruption, with one lane closed. In Leicestershire, congestion on the M1 northbound between junctions 20 and 21 is causing extended delays. The A303 westbound between the A36 and A350 is experiencing a 10-minute delay. And on the trains, Greater Anglia is disrupted between Cheshunt and Bishop Stortford, and London North Western Railway has a reduced service. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. It's 3:39. You'll be Martin Daubney here on GB News. Now, the breaking news earlier today, of course, that the former Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, resigned following the House tax scandal. Well, the current favourite ministers to replace her are on your screen now. This is according to Labour list. With the members set to get to vote on the next Deputy PM, bookies, well, we'll see about what the bookies think in a minute. But the Labour list are currently saying Ed Miliband is the runaway favourite. His popularity, I believe, is on plus 73. Meanwhile, at the bottom end of the table in the relegation zone, Sir Keir Starmer is the third most disliked minister with Labour voters on -6. Liz Kendall at the very, very bottom. Rachel Reeves in second to bottom place. But what do the bookies say? Is it time for a little flutter on who could be the next Deputy Prime Minister? Well, let's speak now with the political bookmaker, William Kajani, and I'm still joined by the former Labour candidate, Kevin Craig. William, welcome to Westminster. What are the scores on the doors in the bookies market?
Shabana Mahmood is our big mover of the day in pretty much everything, but especially the next Deputy Prime Minister. She's 2-1. She opened up 6-1. In Westminster, she has been talked up all day, especially through the morning and in the afternoon, but there's a lot of reshuffling going on, and the Deputy Prime Minister role has been held in conjunction with some other big roles as well, and I'm sure you've heard the rumours that Yvette Cooper might be out at the Home Office, Shabana Mahmood might replace her, so does that suddenly make Yvette Cooper, who opened up 9-2 with Star, maybe a contender to get that, and maybe we have a sole Deputy Prime Minister? It really is all on the table, and we're seeing lots of market movement.
People are getting interested in Ed Miliband, and not necessarily for the right reasons. A lot of people might be getting nightmares about the prospect of Ed Miliband being the next Deputy Prime Minister. Those who don't like him think he's an eco-zealot, and even within the Labour Party, perhaps it's taken the party back to a distant time. Is Ed Miliband featuring on your scoreboard, or are people not taking him seriously as a potential future Deputy PM?
He is on our scoreboard. He's 16-1, which is, on the face of it, a very big price compared with what members think of him. But we are hearing that the next Deputy Prime Minister could be appointed as soon as this afternoon. And the thinking, at least from my side, is that he may not be the favoured choice if Number 10 just want to appoint someone. But if it was tied, say, to a members' vote, then that changes rapidly. So I think some people will take the chance of Miliband, but it's entirely possible that the deputy leader isn't the Deputy Prime Minister. We've got to wait and see on that, but there's value.
So Shabana Mahmood is the bookies' favourite at the moment, with Star at 2-1. Who else is bringing up the rear, as it so to speak? Who else is in the prime position?
Well, you did mention that Liz Kendall and Rachel Reeves weren't doing so well in the trackers, and they are double figures with us. They're both over 20-1, 22-1 for Kendall. Reeves a little bit bigger, 25s the last time we had a market update. So, yeah, they are well out, and we can't really see it. Reeves is staying as Chancellor anyway, according to all the briefings.
So Shabana Mahmood, 2-1. Who's in second, third place? Who else is looking like an outside flutter?
Wes Streeting was highly talked about. He opened the betting initially as market leader at 4-1. Yeah. Now, he's just around about the same price. He was 92 when I last saw. And we've got Yvette Cooper, interestingly, actually, who had opened up the 92 second favourite. So they are kind of the big leaders. And then you do have a couple of Labour women. Bridget Phillipson, 15-2. She didn't do too badly in those rankings, and Lisa Nandy is not that far behind.
OK, thank you very much, Will. Kevin, you've been waiting patiently and nodding along and shaking your head to some of the scores on the doors there. How do you think this one is going to play out?
I think I'd be very surprised if Ed Miliband was Deputy Prime Minister. I've thought for a long time, and I've had a lot of dealings with Ed over the years, that he needs to do more for this government and its polling. So a lot of people don't like him because of the net zero agenda. I happen to think that's a very good agenda for the country. But he's very much stuck to his lane. He's focused on that area of policy. And it's the responsibility of every member of the Cabinet to get out there and help this government communicate with the voters that put it into power in the first place. So Ed, I don't think is going to get it. I think Keir will want to, if he can, find a very talented woman. And I think that works well, male, female at the top. I think Wes Streeting is very, very competent, very well thought of, and is an interesting person to think about a deputy, although he's got his hands full. Rachel will stay doing her job as Chancellor. She doesn't need anything more to think about. And, you know, the Cabinet has got to be people who can take the message of this government and what it's about and 6 things that will be different in 4 years' time now out to millions of people, and that's what I'm looking for.
Do you think it matters that it has to be a woman? Who cares? Just get the best person.
Yeah, I don't think it matters in one of those sort of... I'm not saying that in a politically correct way, but I just think in terms of getting a woman's perspective, you know, let's be honest about men. We get a lot of stuff wrong all the time, OK? I don't think it's unhelpful to have a female voice in the top 2 jobs in the Labour Party.
Angela Rayner's got a few things wrong.
Well, Angela Rayner got one thing
Lucy
wrong.
Powell got a few things wrong.
Rayner got one thing...
Cooper's got a few things wrong. Rachel Reeves got a few things wrong.
But they also have got a huge amount right. And Angela Rayner, who was in many ways a great politician, has fallen on a sword and done the right thing, which hasn't happened for 14 years under Tory sleaze. Moving forward, it's not about being politically correct. I just think sometimes you get a good balance of ideas when you've got a man and a woman at the top of an organisation.
OK, thank you, Kev. And William, what about some other markets you're talking about? Potential next future Prime Minister? Nigel Farage is getting emboldened on this. What are the markets saying?
He is getting involved in this. He is 3-1 with us at the time of writing. And the interesting thing with this is that if Keir Starmer finds himself in any more trouble, especially next year with Scotland and Wales, then the next Prime Minister, for the purposes of this market, might well be a Labour MP at the moment. So there is a bit of risk for those who have jumped on Farage early, assuming, of course, that it was to go very badly next year. Interestingly, speaking of future leadership changes, Shabana Mahmood has been backed in for next Labour leader as well. She's 12-1 from 20-1. And Pat McFadden is 8-1 from 11-1. McFadden also has been a bit of an interesting mover when it comes to our next Chancellor market and also, of course, the next Deputy Prime Minister market.
William, thank you. Final word to you, Kevin. Craig, what are the odds of Sir Keir Starmer still being the leader of the Labour Party come the next election?
He will be. It's without question. The Labour Party cannot replace a Prime Minister who won a historic majority without going back to the British people. It's not going to happen. It's going to be, who do you want to lead this country, Starmer or Farage? Who's got the best values? Who's got the interests of this country at heart? And I'm looking forward to that.
OK, well, that's a 2-horse race. A lot of people look forward to. Kevin, Craig, thank you very much. Always a pleasure. And William Kajani, thanks for coming in from Starbuckies, right? Thank you very much indeed. Now, if you search some holiday sun this year, here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Low pressure to the west of the UK may drag in some breezy conditions around coasts of Portugal. Otherwise, it's mostly fine and settled across much of Europe. Here's this area of low pressure bringing in those breezy conditions around coasts of western Portugal, northwestern parts of Spain, potentially bringing in some cloud, perhaps some light outbreaks of rain later into the day. But as we move our way eastwards across the Mediterranean, we can see it's mostly dry, settled, plenty of sunshine. That theme continues over the weekend, along with the warm sunshine.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I thought, well, why not? It's a very ambitious project, but I'm not surprised it's so many years behind schedule, and the sheer cost of it is amazing. But it's a shame it looks like it might not be going ahead, but there are a few countries they can use as a bit of a backup.
Oh, Eddie, we've got some images here of you on the screen. Do you remember these moments here?
Oh, I remember them well. It's nearly 38 years ago, back in Calgary, and
Wow.
I can still remember it like it was yesterday.
Was that the 19... So Eddie, just for the audience to know who you are the first person to represent Great Britain in Olympic ski jumping. That's right. So was it 1988? Was this your first performance we can see here?
It was. I think it was the small hill, that one, and on the 70 metre, and then a week later I did the 90 metre. So yeah, I became Britain's first ever Olympic ski jumper. So I still remember it like it was yesterday.
Oh, well, absolutely. Look at those scenes. They're absolutely glorious, Eddie. Love to see it. Well, just go back to our previous topic there for a second. So you know, I'm guessing you have seen some of the facilities around the world. Where seems like a sensible place to have this? Because, of course, we're considering South Korea and other countries as well. Where would you pick this? What would be the best location in your experience, Eddie?
Well, actually, about, I can't remember the year, but at least 10 to 15 years ago, I commentated on the Asian Olympics, and I was commentating when it was in Kazakhstan, in Almaty. Right. So that's another place that they could use for the Asian Olympics. Unfortunately, in the ski jumping event where I was commentating, there were only 12 jumpers taking part. So it was a very, very small competition, but it was great fun. And they do have a ski jump in Kazakhstan, so maybe they can use that as well as a backup.
GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 4. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, earlier on today, Buckingham Palace announced the sad death of Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Kent. And we can now speak with our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. Cameron, welcome to the show. A sad day of a much-loved royal.
Yeah, absolutely, Martin. She was the oldest living member of the royal family until her death late last night. Buckingham Palace confirmed the news at midday today. The King and the Queen were informed last night. They're currently at Balmoral Castle, and the King has approved a period of royal mourning, meaning until after the funeral. Flags are flying at half-mast above all royal residences. We had the official notice pinned to the door, to the gates of Buckingham Palace earlier today, as well as is tradition. All staff members and uniformed military personnel will also be wearing black armbands, and members of the royal family, their engagements perhaps will be impacted over the next week or so until the funeral. The Duchess, Catherine, Duchess of Kent, died at Kensington Palace, surrounded by her family late last night. She leaves behind three children and a number of great-grandchildren and grandchildren as well. She perhaps is most known to our viewers and listeners back in the 90s and 80s for delivering the Wimbledon trophies to the winners, perhaps most notably in 1993, showing her true compassion when she consoled a very, very tearful Yana Novotná, who lost the women's final, and whispered in her ear saying, "Don't worry, you'll win it one day." And 5 years on, she certainly did. She also was one of the first members of the royal family really to break the taboo around mental health, long before the Prince and Princess of Wales championed it following the death of her stillborn son. She also was a real passionate, a stickler for music, and really had a passion for exposing underprivileged children to music. She taught quietly for 13 years in a Hull school known simply as Mrs. Kent. She was undercover, effectively, at that Hull school. And then in 2004, she founded a charity, Future Talent. We've had a number of tributes pouring in, including from the Prince and Princess of Wales. They say our thoughts today are with the Duke of Kent and his family, particularly George, Helen and Nicholas. The Duchess worked tirelessly to help others and supported many causes, including through her love of music. She will be much missed member of the family. Dame Esther Ranton, she has also released a statement paying tribute to the help that the Duchess gave to Childline, the charity that Dame Esther Ranton founded, and the Prime Minister has sent his condolences to His Majesty the King and members of the royal family. And of course, the Duke of Kent was Queen Elizabeth II's first cousin. The Duchess married into that family in 1961. So it's a very sad period for the royal family.
Thank you. A moving finale there and a hugely glamorous member of the royal family, must say. Some of those photographs there from the swinging 60s look absolutely superb. Greatly missed. Cameron Walker, thank you for that warm tribute. Absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. Now stick with us because we're heading straight back to Birmingham for that Reform UK conference. Already today, Nigel Farage has said we are the last chance to get this country back on track. You can see their speakers still on the stage. That is the 19-year-old councillor, the youngest politician been elected by Reform UK. We're expecting to hear from Zia Youssef, who's just been crowned today the new head of policy, the Department of Readiness for Government. We'll also join that man, Lee Anderson, the Red Wall Rottweiler, no doubt, as usual, about as subtle as a house brick to the head. We'll be hearing from him and we'll be live there as Nigel Farage says the public is sticking up two fingers to a country that doesn't believe in it. Those flags say we've had enough. We'll be live from Birmingham after this. Stick with us here on GB News. But first, here's your weather forecast.
Today's outlook: cool, calm and completely horizontal. Boxed Aircon sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Odd shower for some during the rest of the day, but most places will be dry with increasingly clear spells, particularly across England and Wales. High pressure building from the south, keeping us largely settled heading into the weekend following what has been a very wet start to September. But that isn't to say it's going to be completely dry. We do still have some showers to talk about, mostly towards the west and northwest of the UK. These tending to be light, they'll move on quickly enough. And for many, it is dry overnight with clear spells. The lengthiest clear spells for the Midlands, the south and southeast of England, northeast Scotland as well, where we do have clear skies overnight, temperatures dipping into the low double figures or high single figures. A few mist patches forming by dawn into the southeast of England, for example, but they'll disappear soon enough. Across Wales and the southwest, some patchy cloud to begin things. Northern England also areas of cloud floating around, but the cloudiest place most likely Northern Ireland, where there will be some light showers, and there'll also be a scattering of light showers across parts of Scotland, particularly towards the west and southwest. Best of any brightness early on the far north of Scotland. Now, Saturday is looking fine for many. A lot of bright weather around, particularly towards the east where there'll be spells of sunshine. In the west, increasingly cloudy skies, particularly later on, and a freshening breeze. That's going to make it feel a little cooler, but that breeze coming from the south will import higher temperatures, 24 Celsius likely in the southeast. And then we get into Saturday night, and with that mild source of air, it's going to be a mild night for many, with temperatures in the mid-teens in places. But Sunday starts off largely dry. However, we do have an area of rain moving in from the west, and it's going to be an unsettled week next week.
Today's outlook: cool, calm and completely horizontal. Boxed Aircon sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A85 is closed near Cruachan Power Station due to a collision. Use alternative routes and allow extra journey time. In Cheshire East, on the M6 northbound at junction 19, one lane is closed after an incident, causing possible delays. M25 clockwise between junction 31 and junction 1A has a lane closed, causing an hour's delay. Wiltshire's A303 westbound between A36 and A350 faces 10-minute delays. And on the trains, Greater Anglia services are disrupted between Cheshunt and Bishop Stortford, while London North Western Railway has reduced service. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
It's our biggest Great British giveaway to date. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas and has all of the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that any adventures you take in your new motorhome are taken in style. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
A very, very good afternoon to you and a happy Friday. It's 4 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show on GB News, broadcasting live across the UK and bringing you all of the very latest news, debate and analysis. Coming up on today's action-packed show, Rayner has been erased. Labour's under fire. Deputy Leader Angela Rayner has finally been forced to resign for breaching the ministerial code. She blamed the media. Her defenders blamed snobbery, but in the end, Ms Rayner simply ran out of road and ran out of excuses. What does this mean next for a Labour Party in complete meltdown? And meanwhile, Keir Starmer has commenced a major reshuffle of his cabinet. In fact, we've got some huge breaking news on that with Chris Hope in just a moment's time. But we've already learned that the House of Commons leader, Lucy Powell, has been sacked just a short while ago. We'll be live to our man Chopper on Downing Street shortly.
And say, you are the last chance we've got to get this country back on track. We are the last chance the country's got to get this country back on track.
A short while ago at the Reform Conference in Birmingham, Nigel Farage roared, "We're all ships rising on a turquoise tide, heading towards winning the next general election in 2027. We'll be live from Brum, taking live speeches from Richard Tice, Zia Youssef, and also speaking to the Red Wall Rottweiler Lee Anderson. Let's cross straight now to our man Chris Hope on Downing Street. Chris, I understand there's some more huge breaking news on this reshuffle day in Downing Street.
Very, very big news. We understand that Yvette Cooper is moving from the job of Home Secretary to a different role. There are reports that Shabana Mahmood, the current Justice Secretary, she could be replacing him, and it could be that David Lammy moves from Foreign Secretary to Home Secretary, but it is looking like this may be about to happen. Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, could be on the move. I'm looking halfway down to my left here at those famous gates at the end of Downing Street, Martin, because we are expecting the first arrivals within minutes, and as soon as they arrive, all will become clear. So what's happened so far? Let's step back. There's been, of course, the resignations, the sackings. Angela Rayner resigned. Lucy Powell, Leader of the House of Commons, sacked. Ian Murray, who's the Scottish Secretary, apparently sacked, but not not confirmed. Others, Poppy Gustafsson, Investment Minister, she's gone. And there are 2 other roles not filled yet, the Homelessness Minister and a Net Zero job. So there's 6 jobs going in government, 3 big cabinet posts, but it looks like we are seeing a musical chairs happening between the Foreign Office, the Justice Department and the Home Office. Those ministers moving different jobs. We don't yet know, though, who is the new leader of the House of Commons, a vital role to ensure they can keep the discontent on the Labour backbenches under control, and who is the new Scottish Secretary. Again, we don't know. So all eyes on Downing Street over the next half an hour.
Incredible breaking news there. Particularly, Chris, about Yvette Cooper, of course, perhaps one of the toughest jobs in all of Parliament, an impossible task. Nobody managed to stop the boats from the Conservative Party. They haven't managed to smash the gangs thus far by anybody's reckoning. Immigration has been a complete and mitigated disaster for the Labour Party. Yvette Cooper failed to get any traction. And it seems she was the architect of the 1 in, 1 out deal, Chris. So far today for the Labour Party, it's 5 in and none out. Sorry, 5 out and none in. They're doing terribly. This is turning into a car crash. Is it serious that David Lammy could be considered as the next Home Secretary?
As the next David Lammy to Justice, and of course, and the rumour is we're going to see Shabana Mahmood, currently the Justice Secretary. She goes across to be Home Secretary. That is what could be happening. We do think, though, that Yvette Cooper's on the move and waiting to see who may replace her. But that's right. I think that within the legal boundaries this government has given itself, they have tried to do what they can. They're trying to look at playing around with Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights, the right to a family life. This 1 in, 1 out. It's very, very limited. I think there's a frustration in government about how the French are trying to support the UK's efforts to control the border. We spent £500 million for very little return, and I'm afraid to say all that comes home to roost at the door of the Home Secretary. It is hard to see how anyone else could do differently, because within the rules they are not going to leave the ECHR, Martin. Not going to do the kind of the big bold movement. Maybe try and find some offshore deal like the Rwanda deal, something to dissuade people from making that journey across the southern border. They may want someone who's better at communications. Yvette Cooper is seen as someone who is cautious and risk averse and says very little of interest often in interviews. Maybe someone who can go toe to toe, frankly, with Nigel Farage, with Lee Anderson, with the people who are leading in the polls, with a much more an out there way of describing what's going on. So maybe we see more of a communicator if it is going to be Shabana Mahmood. But this is a big moment. I did think it was going to be a big day when they said earlier that Rachel Reeves was not moving as Chancellor. Well, the fact that they're saying that she wasn't moving implied other big jobs were going or moving around, and that's why we're seeing these great officers of state moving today.
So Angela Rayner, deputy, goes, and of course that will throw open to the membership the possibility of a leadership battle, the last thing a party wants. The Labour Party themselves said continually about the Conservatives, divided parties don't win elections. Chris Hope, Sir Keir Starmer will be desperately trying to portray a message of strength here, of taking difficult decisions, but this was foisted upon him by the stepping down of Angela Rayner, who simply bit off more than she could chew, overextended on that stamp duty tax shortfall of payment. Lucy Powell, of course, she's gone. She was the architect of that disastrous attempt at cutting benefits. The backbenchers wouldn't have it. Ian Murray's got the chop in Scotland. The Conservative, the Labour Party, all but dying out in Scotland. Yvette Cooper, though, will be seen as a huge embarrassment to have to replace a Home Secretary this soon. The optics of this, Chris, no matter how you try and spin it, it's a terrible day for the Labour Party. Chris?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure. I think it's a day of refreshing, maybe, the government. A terrible day, certainly a terrible day for Angela Rayner, but they have got a lot of people who can do other roles in government. I mean, a terrible day. I'm not entirely sure now. If you just looking to my left here, Martin, we're seeing a car about to arrive. If you stay with me, it may be one of the new ministers emerging will be shouting to someone to find out what has happened there. There are reports now that David Lammy is replacing Angela Rayner as the Deputy Prime Minister. That will give David Lammy a big boost in his profile. That means that he will stand in for the Prime Minister at PMQs. There was a car coming down Downing Street now. I'll just try and see who it is. I think it's waiting for the bollards to move. Nothing's happened yet, so I'll keep talking here. But yeah, David Lammy, rumoured to be the new Deputy Prime Minister. That could change, of course, when they get a new deputy leader of the Labour Party, but that can take up to 6 months. So it looks like David Lammy could be holding that role while they go further and try and ensure they can get someone elected to that role by the members. And who that is a difficult one, because already names like Emily Thornberry are being moved around. She, of course, was put out, it seems, by not being made the Attorney General, having shadowed that role under the Labour government. That'd be interesting. And will the left will want someone in that role who they can look to and know is pursuing left-wing policies? And that's what Angela Rayner offered to the left under this government. Of course, John Prescott under the Labour government in the early part of this century. So the left will want to know who that is, and it could be a difficult appointment for Keir Starmer. So lots in play. Disastrous? I'm not entirely sure. I think it's the government's refreshing. Personally disastrous, no question, for Angela Rayner. Personally disastrous for Lucy Powell and Ian Murray. But you know, this is a government that needs to refresh itself. What is a disaster, frankly, is this government's poll ratings. The fact they have tried to reshape it on Monday with behind-the-scenes people moving to different roles, but hasn't really worked. And now they've got a problem here with Angela Rayner's and her tax affairs. We still don't know, of course, who is the new Housing Secretary, who is the new Leader of the House, and who is the new Scottish Secretary. So the big jobs look like they're moving to. It's an attempt, I think, to get this party motoring in the polls. I should say that was not a car arriving here with the Minister, but we are expecting that to happen imminently, and I'll let you know when that's happening.
Okay, Chris, I just want to pick up a couple of details. What you're saying there, a lot of people will be raising eyebrows that David Lammy could be the Deputy Prime Minister, not the Deputy Leader, of course. That has to be thrown to the membership, and they might take a very different view. David Lammy, let's be frank, thus far his greatest achievement has been giving away the Chagos Islands, and perhaps giving away 30 or 40 billion pounds of British taxpayers' money. Hardly a ringing endorsement in terms of the electorate's eyes of his capability to run the country in Sir Keir Starmer's absence. I'm going to say this to you, Chris. Is this reshuffle now showing the thin gruel on the front bench, the paucity of talent? If we're moving people around into these posts, am I being harsh when I say that there aren't really any heavyweights in this cabinet to take the place of Angela Rayner?
Well, I mean, again, we don't know who's replacing Angela Rayner. We know that we don't know who the new Housing Secretary is. Yes, the Deputy Prime Minister is David Lammy. To me, that looks like it would be a holding position until they can elect one from the membership, and then that person may get that job. But of course, Sir Keir Starmer doesn't know who that will be, so he wants to make sure that it's someone who he knows and trusts in David Lammy. It's a significant moment, of course, for him personally, David Lammy, if he becomes Deputy Prime Minister, a black man risen to one of the most senior roles in government. It's a moment that is a great moment for our nation, I think. Whether he's the person politically, so those on the right would want there. Yes, the Chagos Islands, that deal is being widely attacked, and there are concerns in the White House, according to Nigel Farage, when he's been speaking to people there. So yes, that's a concern for some people. But I think you know it's interesting. I think seeing David Lammy move across the Justice Department, and then we see Shabana Mahmood into Home Office, and then we see Yvette Cooper on the Foreign Office. It's an attempt, I think, to get a grip of the agenda, get this government motoring again. This reshuffle has gone far further, it seems, than we thought it would do at the start of the day.
Do you think that's going to work? There's a sense here, you and I speak, every day about the shenanigans in the Labour Party, the huge events in the country, which now seem, in a sense, bigger than the government itself. Total inability to control our borders, an economy which feels like it's on a precipice of recession, perhaps, heading towards a budget on November the 26th, which many feel is going to be absolutely tortuously painful. And when we hear people like David Lammy are hoving into view to save the day, is that really much hope for the country?
Well, I think the government has got a difficult job in front of it. It has, you know, the last government borrowed £500 billion to pay for the COVID pandemic, the response to the energy shock caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. That would always going to mean that whoever was in power would probably have to look at tax rises in the back end of this decade. That is what they're doing. The problem Labour's got is that they told everyone they weren't going to do tax raises in the obvious areas like national insurance, income tax and elsewhere, and they are sticking to other spending proposals. That is a problem for Labour. They're trying to find ways to raise money, having boxed themselves in. That's how they won the election. That is their problem. But I think on a, you know, this government is trying to, you know, bring back, they would say, serious government after the chaos of the Conservatives. But it does feel as though they aren't really making any bearing at all. If 50,000 people cross the channel into the UK this year, as looks likely, that is a complete failure. And the idea of what may have worked, which looked like some form of deterrent with the Rwanda plan, that was axed in that press conference that I was at 2 days into this government by Sir Keir Starmer. Some would say, why do that? It looked like it was working anecdotally, according to reports of people staying in France, not crossing over to the UK, and also those going from north to southern Ireland. It was seen to be working anecdotally, but Labour abandoned that. So they've got to get something to make something happen. Will moving people work? Already people on my social media are saying they're shuffling the deck chairs on the deck of the Titanic.
Yeah, I think they have a point there, and it's a grim irony that Sir Keir Starmer has managed to get rid of more ministers than he has illegal immigrants back to France. It really is an incredible state of affairs. Chris Hope, no doubt we're coming back to you shortly when this carnage continues. But for now, let's head back to the Reform UK conference in Birmingham. Zia Yousif is on the stage.
We will sanction them. So I think everyone in this room, we have a message today for those in this country illegally. Enjoy those perks while they last, because when Nigel's Prime Minister, UK Deportation Command will find you, they will detain you, and they will deport you. Now, even just over a year ago, talking about what a reform government would do in power would have been met with scorn and laughter from the chattering classes. Reform had just one MP, and the first past the post system supposedly meant start-up insurgent parties like ours could never challenge the two-party system. The odds were long. But thankfully, we have a leader who kind of specializes in beating long odds. He beat the odds in surviving a plane crash. He beat the odds with Brexit. He beat the odds with the banks. He beat the odds by securing 5 seats last summer, and soon enough he will defy the odds again and become the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Now, some will say all this can't be done. They said the same when Britain stood alone in 1940, when we stared down tyranny and defended the free world. They said the same when our sailors ruled the oceans, when our inventors sparked revolutions in science and industry, and when our explorers mapped the globe. They said the same when this island of ours raised its flag on every continent and gave birth to the greatest commonwealth of free nations the world has ever known. We are the land of Newton and Churchill, of Shakespeare and Rowling, the land that gave the world the rule of law, the English language, and the miracle of English common law. But today I say that for all of our rich history, our best days are ahead of us. Make no mistake, we are living through history being made in this country. In 100 years' time, they will study this chapter of British history. Children will be taught of prime ministers who allowed for our nation to be invaded and forced hard-working Brits to pay for it. They will learn of Tory politicians who lied time and again to the British people that they control immigration and then did the opposite. They will learn of a political class that betrayed its own people. They'll learn of a Britain that was besieged. But I believe they'll also learn about something else. They will learn that something remarkable and astonishing then happened. That just as has happened so often before in British history, the British people stood up and said, no, not on our watch. I see a Britain in the future which has secure borders. I see a poised, powerful Britain which celebrates its history and looks forward to the confidence in its future. And I see a Britain that defends its values and cherishes its culture. I see a Britain which rewards hard work and takes the knee to nobody. I see a Britain in which, after having paid taxes your whole life, you can go to the hospital and be seen by world-class doctors and nurses at once. I see a Britain in which our young people can not only afford to move out of their parents' house, but one day they will be able to buy a home of their own. I see a Britain which puts British people first. And this is no pipe dream. This is now truly on the cards. Just look around you. So British people, young, old, I say this: it's time for us to stand up and write the next chapter in our great country's story. It's time to put the needs, the hopes, the dreams of British people first. It is time for reform. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
That is Zia Youssef there at the Reform UK conference in Birmingham, the head of Doge. And we learned today from Nigel Farage, the new head of policy at Reform UK, as the party launches its department for preparing for government. Zia Youssef there, clearly looking forward to the next general election. We're crossing live back to Birmingham throughout the rest of the show. Later in the show, we'll have Lee Anderson on the show for his usual subtle take on political proceedings. No doubt he'll have a lot to say. But back to our other breaking news story today, and that is, of course, Angela Rayner, the deputy PM, forced to stand down. Did she jump? Was she pushed? But she went over, of course, a stamp duty underpay. What really went on? What are the technicalities? I think that's worth investigating. I'm joined now by my next expert. That is the stamp duty expert, Sean Randall. Sean, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. Tell us, a lot of people are saying she claimed that she initially got bad advice. The legal company said, no, you didn't. We didn't give you any advice. She clearly breached the ethics standards. She's paid the ultimate price as a consequence. Where's your expert analysis of where you think she went so desperately wrong on stamp duty?
Hi. So, I mean, look, in a simple sense, her comment that she acted in accordance with advice was a bit of an exaggeration, and that's been found to be the case. So, like any residential property transaction, a residential property lawyer acted for her. They said what the stamp duty land tax would be payable in the form of a calculation and a line in the completion statement for the transaction. It sounds as if Angela Rayner also sought advice from another non-tax expert. Both of those, the conveyancer and the other non-tax expert, were cognizant of her trust arrangements. And because of that, both of them gave her a warning to seek specialist advice. And it was the failure to heed that warning and take specialist advice that has meant that she's breached the Code for Ministerial Standards. And in my view, she's been careless.
And Sean Randall, we were saying yesterday, how on earth can the housing minister not understand stamp duty and how much to pay? I mean, anybody can go on the HMO website and simply type in the value of your property, and you get a calculation within a nanosecond.
Well, I think that might be a bit unfair. So it sounds self-serving because I am an expert, but stamp duty can be complicated. And this particular rule isn't front of mind of everyone. You would need to look for it. But what's important is both the people that she sought advice from gave her qualified advice. It recommended to her specifically to take specialist advice. And had she done so, in my view, she would have found out the real answer probably very quickly. This isn't something that was so complicated that only a top tax barrister would have been aware of this particular rule, but nor is it something that she could have found very easily by herself, I think.
So in your opinion, there was simply no dancing her way around this. She couldn't blame media intrusion. She couldn't blame the fact she has an accent, a northern accent, a working class upbringing. She quite simply either misunderstood or deliberately broke the rules, and it's as clear as day she had to bite the bullet.
Yeah, in a sense, I mean, it was all about whether she took reasonable care. And, ultimately, it's been found pretty objectively that she didn't because of the warnings.
OK, Sean Randall, I'm afraid I have to interrupt you and go back to Downing Street because I believe Yvette Cooper is arriving there at Downing Street. Chris, over to you.
That's right, Martin. We're expecting shortly to see the new Foreign Secretary arrive in number 10 Downing Street. We're all eyes are on the various gates in number 10, but quite a moment here to see Yvette Cooper, as we think will be confirmed as the Foreign Secretary of this new government, moving from Home Secretary. David Lammy, of course, is the new Justice Secretary and the Deputy Prime Minister, a huge boost in his profile in this government. And we are waiting and we think, well, we know Shabana Mahmood is a new Home Secretary. Those are the great officers of state. They have moved around. We still don't know who the new Housing Secretary is, the Scottish Secretary. There are other roles below that. This is a very, very big reshuffle by Sir Keir Starmer, which we're seeing take shape. We're about to see the first ministers arrive. I've got all eyes all around me as best I can, Martin.
And Chris Hope, dwelling on you for a moment if we can. I know you'll continue looking over your shoulder there about what's going to happen next. It's a hugely fast-moving day, but I want to get back to you again. It's like perhaps the most important position, other than the Prime Minister right now, is the Home Secretary. The number one crisis in the country is the border crisis, both illegal immigration, legal immigration. We've heard all sorts of notions, National Crime Agency getting extra money, more money to France, a one-in, one-out deal. And by the way, I keep joking about this, but let's be frank, Sir Keir Starmer has deported more ministers in one day today than he's managed to deport illegal immigrants back to France. The Home Secretary's job is the most important job in the entire cabinet. Yvette Cooper simply found wanting. But here's the point. Can anybody fulfil this task under Sir Keir Starmer, or is it the ultimate poison chalice?
Well, the hardest job in government, I think, away from being Prime Minister and probably Chancellor, is being Home Secretary. I think you have to work within the confines of what you're doing there. It's not easy. I think Yvette Cooper did the best she could. She was found wanting on dealing with the small boats crisis. That, in part, though, is a policy driven by the Prime Minister and the government. They want to try and develop new ways of dealing with, working with counterparts around the world and trying to negotiate everything. And it just takes longer. It takes time. Other countries don't need to want to help us, and that's part of the problem, I think. So that's why it's so frustrating that Yvette Cooper's found it as such. It seems why she's moving to Foreign Secretary. Shabana Mahmood going to be the new Home Secretary. That is a role which could require the eyes of a lawyer like Shabana Mahmood. Certainly that this autumn is looking like when the Tory party is going to commit to leaving the European Convention on Human Rights to allow the government to take a much tougher line on the small boats crisis and deport people more quickly, not allow them to appeal through the court system, using that Article 8 right to a family life. So to having her there, it will be a big moment and maybe refreshing a new pair of eyes on this difficult problem of tackling the small boats crisis. For Reform UK, though, and the Tory party, they've got their own ideas and much more dramatic. And of course, we know from Kevin Badenoch, she would go back to the idea of a complete deterrent, a third-party processing. When I know Nigel Farage telling his members and supporters today in Birmingham that he simply would end the crisis very, very quickly within weeks of becoming Prime Minister. So it's an attempt, I think, by Number 10 to refresh the front bench and get more energy behind the idea of tackling these small boats. We're looking at 50,000 arriving in this calendar year, a record by a long margin. They know they've got to tackle it. We'll wait and see. There are reports already that it won't just be Shabana Mahmood moving, but most of those ministers in the Home Office, they could be on the move. Again, nothing formally confirmed. All we do know officially is what I've told you, but we are waiting to see more as I bring it.
Chris Hope, I want to stick with you for a while because there's so much going on. I know you're looking down the street. That's fine. You can listen and look down the street at the same time. You're a smart fella. In the meantime, I'll keep talking. Here's the point. You use that well-worn political metaphor there of rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, but perhaps in this case, it does have merit. Shabana Mahmood, no doubt, a very competent lawyer, but she's best known in this term of government at least for releasing a huge amount of prisoners early, and it's been calamitous. We were told no violent offenders would be released, but they were. We saw people popping champagne corks outside Nick's when they were released. We've seen a botched tagging system simply failing. The prisons are full. Shabana Mahmood had to step in to pull down sentencing from the guideline from the Sentencing Council, which was actually talking about watering down the penalties on illegal immigrants. So first-time offenders couldn't be deported. The entire system is a dog's dinner, and the point is, can anybody save the day?
Well, Martin, on both those points, you could definitely argue, and Shabana Mahmood would argue, that they are both issues presented to her. The guidance that she had to reverse was agreed by the Tory government and came through with the Sentencing Guidelines Council. She then is withdrawing support and powers from the Sentencing Guidelines Council as part of sentencing guidelines based on race and other issues. And going back to last year with the prison release, that was something which was created by an overcrowding crisis that happened under the Tory government. Both those issues were presented to her and she dealt with them, so arguably she was showing a degree of competency by tackling those problems as presented to her. But yes, I think maybe some fresh thinking might be a help. I think it's quite common to have a reshuffle of this scale 15 months into a government. Don't forget, that general election is not far away. If you believe Nigel Farage, it's in 2027. That means it's barely a year and a half away. More likely to be, I think, 2029. But even so, we're already through 2025. Pretty soon we'll be starting to talk about the back end of this 5-year parliament, and that's why I think Keir Starmer's trying to get things going, trying to lift this party out of the polling doldrums. They're on 20 points, Reform between 32 and 35 points, miles ahead. The Tories, of course, 17 points, and some would say may fall further. Certainly their critics would say that. So I think it's an attempt here by Keir Starmer to get a grip and drive policy forward and get a grip on this government.
OK, well, Chris Hope, you're in danger of getting tennis neck there, looking down Downing Street. I'm going to give our viewers and listeners a quick update. You keep looking down there. I'll give a quick update to those tuning in. At the very latest, what's been a hugely dramatic day thus far on Downing Street. Angela Rayner, of course, was the first to be sacked this morning, well, or to leave, we don't know, resign as the Deputy PM and the Housing Minister. Lucy Powell, the leader of the House, was next to go. Ian Murray, Scotland, went. We've just heard Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary. She's got the bullet. We've heard coming in to replace Angela Rayner as Deputy PM. Of course, Deputy Leader has to go to the membership. That could take 6 months. But eyebrows might be raised at this one. David Lammy, the new Deputy Prime Minister of the Labour Party, of the government, and Shabana Mahmood, the current Justice Secretary, being moved in to replace Yvette Cooper as Home Secretary. And as I was saying there, Shabana Mahmood, most known in this government at least for the early release of thousands of prisoners, scenes which precipitated prisoners, cons, popping corks outside Nick's, hopping into supercars with carrier bags full of booze. Absolute calamity. The sort of scenes which people in any way don't think is taking back control of law and order. It's now her brief to try and take back control of our borders. And Chris Hope saying there is hearing from political analysts saying this is very much feeling like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. And we've got a comment just come in from the leader of the Liberal Democrats, Ed Davey. He's just put this comment out on Labour's reshuffle. Mr Davey says this: if Labour believes that having a reshuffle will solve the deep-rooted problems of this government, then they're learning the wrong lessons from the calamity of the Conservatives before them. Until Keir Starmer is ready to grab the bull by the horns and confront the problems of our country that our country really faces, it makes little difference who sits where around the cabinet table. Now, you might say, if you've got Ed Davey having a pop at you, you really are up the creek without a wetsuit. Ed, let's get back to you there. Chris Hope on Downing Street. Even Ed Davies now having a pop at Sir Keir Starmer about this reshuffle, Chris.
Yes, well, I mean, as you well do, this issue is a test of authority. We know the big jobs are moving, the great offices of state. And in fact, there's a car coming through the gates of number 10. The bollards are moving. We're about to see the first appointment by Sir Keir Starmer in this reshuffle. I don't know which minister it is, as to when they emerge, we'll be looking at them closely, but it's pulling now into the gates of 10 Downing Street. The longer this goes on, though, the risk for Sir Keir Starmer is it damages his authority. With a reshuffle, it's got to be clean, it's got to be clear and effective, and not allow it to drag on, because that means there's concern about why people are moving in the background and whether you want to move at all. And that's why I think it can be a game of three-dimensional chess. You read in the memoirs of any Prime Minister, they'll say how hard they found it to reshuffle. And David Cameron, frankly, when he was Prime Minister, thought it didn't do much good, because he wants the minister to get stuck in and get under the bonnet of these departments, and it's just more hassle than it's worth to move people around, because you do create enemies for all those who are promoted. The ones who are sacked become your enemies pretty quickly, as we've seen from the past. So we're waiting to see who is first through the door. The gates are opening at the end of Downing Street, and as soon as I can see who it is, I'll bring it to you, Martin.
We're going to stick with you, because if this car hose interview, Chris, I want to see you scurry over there and get a comment. You're doing a great job there. I think you're going to need some exercise on your neck later on there, Captain. But listen, on a serious point, one of the appointments that's caused the biggest gasp, the biggest raise of the eyebrows on a day which has caused much raising of eyebrows, is the elevation of David Lammy to Deputy Prime Minister. A lot of people are saying, is this tokenism? We keep hearing about it has to be a woman, has to be a person of colour. Why? Why can't it just be the best person? And is David Lammy really the best person for the job? He made a complete mockery of international relations by calling Donald Trump a fascist and a white supremacist and a KKK sympathiser when in opposition. A very different tune, of course, when he was in the White House. He had to finally stop the sixth form politics and get real. Is this really the best we have to offer to be the Deputy Prime Minister in this country?
I think that's a bit unfair to talk about tokenism. I mean, David Lammy is someone who did have dinner with Donald Trump last September. They did get on very well by David Lammy's own account. Yes, he said those remarks that we do know very well about, criticising Donald Trump when he was the president. I thought at the time when he made those remarks they were unwise. These remarks always come back to bite you, particularly about our closest ally internationally, the leader of the US. He's moved on. He's tried to clarify what he said. He's been someone, David Lammy, I think on the global stage, you would say the past 15 months to a year, maybe away from the Chagos Islands deal, have been largely successful. They have renegotiated successfully a deal on the European Union that has not erupted this year like many thought it would, despite the concerns amongst the country's fishermen. But yeah, I think he did okay as Foreign Secretary. They're now trying to give him this different role of being Deputy PM. It means that the Tory party will be finding someone else to try and face off against David Lammy. I think it has been Alex Burkhardt in the past, and others too came in paid not less to move that one around to see who might be the best person to take on David Lammy. But it will mean that he has a much higher profile. It could mean that he is part of the conversation about who might replace Sir Keir Starmer if and when he chooses to quit as Labour leader and, of course, as Prime Minister if Labour's in office. So it is a fascinating fascinating time in politics. This is not where we thought the day would start. We were discussing David Lammy, frankly, as Deputy Prime Minister. I should say the gates of number 10 are now open, so I'm going to start cricking my neck and looking again to my left, or seeing who is coming through the door. There is nothing coming out of Downing Street. All my texts are going unanswered. A lot of these the reports we're doing, we have to do a report from other people saying what they're hearing is happening. It has been a very, very tight ship, and we're waiting to see again who will emerge from this car. Here comes the car now. I'm just going to move out of the camera shot, Martin.
Going to give your voice a brief rest and give your tennis neck a quick rest going down. Let's get the camera down. Let's get the camera, please. Camera angle. Here we go.
Here we go.
So our car is arriving at Downing Street. Who will emerge? Let's hope in. Chris, what can you see? Over to you.
Probably Yvette Cooper. We'll wait and see. I can see the car being opened now. The bodyguards opening it. Out comes David Lammy, of course, the new Deputy Prime Minister. David Lammy, any remarks on your appointment to be Deputy Prime Minister? Are you delighted?
Have you been demoted, David Lammy?
Have you been demoted, sir, from a bigger job at the Foreign Office? Are you happy being made Deputy Prime Minister? There we have it, David Lammy there, the new Deputy Prime Minister emerging from the car there. And of course, he's going to become, we think, the new Justice Secretary, with Shabana Mahmood moving to Home Secretary and Yvette Cooper coming across to the Foreign Secretary. There's a degree, in a sense, that the Foreign Secretary role is seen as the more senior office, the bigger job, frankly, than either Home Office or Justice Secretary. It may be that he was made Deputy Prime Minister as part of a kind of sop to allow him to move from Foreign Secretary. Anyone who's filled that role loves it, because you're travelling the world stage, you're being feted by world leaders. It's good fun. You don't do a lot of boring old domestic politics. You're on the world stage, staying in our wonderful embassies. So we don't know yet. It may be that offering him Deputy Prime Minister was a way of persuading him to make that move towards the Justice Secretary, because that role is not easy. The prisons are overcrowded, and it's very difficult, I think, for the government to get a grip on that crisis before they can get the prison building programme going, and that won't be to the back end of this decade. So we'll wait and see. But as I say, David Lammy now is in Downing Street for the obligatory photographs as the new Deputy Prime Minister of this country, and we think the Justice Secretary.
And so David Lammy walks into number 10 there, the new Deputy Prime Minister. Interesting, Chris, how people were shouting, is this a demotion? Talk me quickly through that. Why would being moved from the Foreign Office to being the number 2, the Deputy PM, why would that be seen by some as a demotion, Chris Hope, quickly?
Because the Foreign Secretary role is one of the great offices of state. It's a role in which you travel the world, banging a drum for this country. You stay in the finest residences that we offer. You're around the table with all the world leader meetings. If you're going from that job to the one where you're where the Justice Secretary, then it's more of a nuts and bolts job, and it may be that David Lammy was given the Deputy Prime Minister's role to make him do that move. There are already sources coming in elsewhere, other moves happening. Pat McFadden reportedly may take over a super ministry, including the Department for Work and Pensions and the skills remit of the Department of Education. Again, not confirmed. So we are seeing just the beginnings, frankly, the scratching the surface of what could be a very, very big day in the shake-up of how this government is run as it tries to take the fight to reform UK, currently 15 points ahead in the polls. But as I said there, Pat McFadden reportedly could be taking over a new super ministry, including the Department for Work and Pensions and the skills remit of the Department for Education. That is almost, if that is the case, sounds like quite an intelligent move by the government here, trying to link skills with the benefits issue. You've got to get more people off the benefits, the benefits bill in this country. The government couldn't even cut just £5 billion off, barely a scratch on the scale of that bill. Couldn't even cut that with a vote of MPs earlier this year. It seems that could be a role which is going now to Pat McFadden. We'll wait to get the confirmation on that.
Yeah, I mean, just to reconfirm that, Pat McFadden will take over a new super ministry, including the Department for Work and Pensions. Of course, one of those sackings today was Lucy Powell, who completely failed to get any benefits cut through. Chris, over to you. You got some more for us?
Yeah, I've now got a letter. I've seen a letter here from Holly Ridley, who's the General Secretary of the Labour Party. She is confirming that there will be an election to replace the Deputy Leader of the party. Now, I don't want to confuse viewers and listeners. The Deputy Prime Minister is David Lammy. He's in the room behind me. But the Deputy Leader of the party, that is a representative of the membership, he's put in there as Deputy Leader. That will go open to an election. This letter here says this will be conducted in a manner which befits the party of government, which reflects the responsibility we have to act in national interest and deliver for working people. So the National Executive Committee, which runs the party board, if you like, which runs the Labour Party, they'll meet shortly to agree a timetable and the guidelines for this internal contest. That means there will be an election. That means that Keir Starmer may well not get to appoint the Deputy Leader, and will that person in a future reshuffle get the role of Deputy Prime Minister? All sorts of tensions are emerging already with the resignation earlier today at midday of Angela Rayner.
So, Chris Hope, just to repeat that point there, the Deputy Leader of the party isn't the same thing as the Deputy Prime Minister. The Deputy Leader goes to the membership. The members get their say. And, of course, the membership last time went for Angela Rayner, perhaps against the will of what Sir Keir Starmer would have liked to have seen, because Angela Rayner was very popular with the left of the party, with the rump of the membership, and a new Deputy Leader thrown to the membership at a time where perhaps they sense vulnerability in Sir Keir Starmer's government. Perhaps they will go for a candidate which could cause a headache for Sir Keir Starmer. He could have a Deputy Leader that he doesn't want. We could see an infighting in the party. We could see factionalism. We could see the left going to war. Chris, you've got some more for us as well now.
Yeah, reportedly, again, not confirmed, but Liz Kendall, the current Work and Pension Secretary, if Pat McFadden gets that role with a bit of skills from education, she may move to be the new Science Secretary, replacing Peter Kyle, who currently holds the title. That would be a demotion for Liz Kendall. Again, big concerns, I think, in number 10 about why this government couldn't cut just £5 billion off the benefits bill. Is she taking the fall for that? But as things stand, Liz Kendall could be moved towards a new science secretary job as Pat McFadden moves from the Cabinet Office to take over that role in the Work and Pensions. Pat McFadden, of course, was in the Cabinet Office, but now they've got the Darren Jones in there as the Secretary of State reporting into the Prime Minister. Almost too many bosses there, so that would make some sense. I should note that the head of Blue Labour, Lord Glassman, well known to our viewers, Blue Labour, of course, is a part of the Labour movement which speaks for the blue wall, the red wall, however you describe it, arguably speaks for many GB News viewers and listeners. He has said that the appointment of Shabana Mahmood to Home Secretary is fantastic. He says that she now clearly is the leader of our part of the party. So Lord Glassman, a highly influential person within the Labour Party, influential also on Morgan McSweeney, who's the well-regarded Chief of Staff to Keir Starmer. He has welcomed the appointment of Shabana Mahmood as fantastic. She's the leader of this red wall group of Labour MPs.
Astonishing stuff. So much happening, and fascinating. Peter Kyle there has got a demotion. Peter Kyle, of course, sits in that seat where Angela Rayner bought her third pad. A lot of people thinking that she would like that as a safe seat. Peter Kyle has been demoted today. It's all happening on Downing Street. Chris, we need to give your voice box and your neck a well-earned rest. No doubt there'll be much more to come throughout the rest of the show. Chris Hope, for now, you've been superb all day. Please keep beavering away. We'll come back to you as this dramatic day in politics unfolds. Plus, of course, we'll head back to Birmingham, where the Reform UK conference is currently taking place. It's an action-packed day, and we're still getting started. This is GB News, Britain's News Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Today we have a special treat for you all because we're talking about John Stapleton.
Yes.
And he's reunited with his partner, boxing partner, on
Screen
breakfast
wife.
television.
On Screen Wife.
For the first time in 17 years.
Well, we were 17 years together.
We were.
And then I don't know how long that we haven't actually presented it. When did it all? When did the wheels come off?
Nearly 10 years ago.
10 years ago. 10 years ago that the wheels came off and we went our separate ways, like sort of squeaky supermarket trolleys.
Well, stayed in touch.
Oh yes, of course. We carried on with our very sober lunches.
Indeed.
Well, my friend, absolutely great to see you.
Hi, new fella.
And what's wrong with you?
I've got a thing called Parkinson's disease, which is what they call a progressive illness, which is a polite way of saying it'll only get worse. But thinking positive about it, lots of people live a near normal life with Parkinson's, so I'm aiming to do the same. I'm taking the tablets, I'm doing the exercises my expert tells me I should do. I'm speaking as well as I can because I need a speech therapist to talk more slowly and more clearly. I also have difficulty swallowing, and the latest thing is I've had difficulty with my balance, hence this stick I've got by my side all the time now. So, but, you know, I'm learning to live with it, doing my best to overcome it.
John, what is it? What is Parkinson's? Those are the effects it's having on you, but where's the problem? Why does it come about?
It's a neurological disorder, which means your body doesn't coordinate as it used to do. It's the fastest growing neurological complaint in the world, believe it or not. We don't quite know why, possibly because more of us are living longer. But, you know, as I say, you can live a near normal life with it, and so if you behave yourself, which I'm attempting to do.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Miriam, you can't be serious. Scrapping the triple lock on state pensions? Madness.
Andrew, we just can't carry on pretending. The numbers just don't add up. We've got to be honest with people. We've got to face the facts. That's what people want.
Well, that's what you get on GB News and on Britain's Newsroom. Lively debates, lively conversation.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first, and we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Welcome back. Let's get straight back to Birmingham now. It's the Reform UK conference. I'm joined by the political advisor, Pablo O'Hannah. Pablo, welcome to the show. Nigel Farage said reform is the last chance to get this country back on track. Presumably, you don't agree.
Well, he's the leader of Reform Party, so I would expect that kind of those kind of lines from him. I do think it's very clear there's a lot of energy here. The thing, not that it's my place to be advising the Reform Party, but I'd be very cautious about how that kind of energy translates to actual votes and seats in a general election. We're obviously 3, maybe 4 years away from that. But yes, to your point, I would not agree that Nigel Farage and reform of the party that we need. But we live in a democracy where everyone is entitled to stand, and all of that comes out in the wash in a general election campaign.
But have you heard anything? I mean, in terms of the momentum, the energy and the mood, we're seeing a funereal atmosphere on Downing Street today. The phrase that keeps getting used by political experts as this reshuffle commences is rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. And meanwhile, where you are right now, the mood seems to be very much, if you're out at sea, it's a turquoise tidal wave, raising, as Nigel Farage said, raising everybody towards Downing Street.
Yeah, I don't think this is a great look for the Labour government. If I was in there, I'd be really concerned about, as you say, this kind of rearranging the deck chairs and the Titanic mentality. And once that gets hold, it's very difficult. We've seen, obviously, with the past Conservative government, people really don't like that chaos. And a big part of Labour getting into government this time was that people were really tired of that chaos. They wanted to see a change from that. They wanted kind of stable government. And this isn't projecting that. I do think, you have to give time for governments to settle in. And, this government is unique in the sense that they really didn't get any kind of honeymoon period at all. They quickly had a tough time. But I think that there needs to be, if this Labour government is to succeed and they're kind of going to win back trust in the public, they've really got to stabilise things. They've got to project strength and confidence. At the moment, that isn't what's happening. The antidote to that, in my opinion, is not the Reform Party. But, it's the Labour Party really does need to kind of get their act together. And I'm obviously not here to defend the Labour Party, but that would be my advice if I was there.
Yeah, if you're defending the Labour Party from inside the Reform UK conference, then you really are on a lonely wicket, Pablo O'Hannah. But on a serious point, the biggest crisis facing the nation right now is and continues to be the small boats crisis. And Nigel Farage made a bold claim today at that conference. You were there, of course. We will stop the boats within 2 weeks. Now, Rishi Sunak said he would stop the boats. He couldn't. He was disposed of. Sir Keir Starmer said his party will smash the gangs. All his smashing is records the amount of ministers kicked out in his term. It's a bold claim. Can Nigel Farage deliver on it?
It's a really tough one, and it is made tougher by us having left the EU. So many people will know, but when we left the EU, we left something called the Dublin Arrangement. That makes it a lot harder to get people out of our country when they shouldn't be here. We all agree that illegal immigration is a problem, even though less than 5% of immigration in this country is illegal. But illegal immigration should be tackled. And when we were in the EU, when someone arrived into Europe, they would have their case handled in the country that they arrived in. They couldn't then just hop around to the country. The problem is that we're not in the EU, of course, so those people can arrive in France or Germany or wherever, and they have their case denied, and then they have a second chance in the UK. So actually, us leaving the EU, which was, of course, Nigel Farage's lifetime ambition, and he achieved it, and it has been nothing but a disaster. But since then, things have only got worse. So yes, he can talk about, ending illegal immigration, which, as I say, accounts for less than 5%.
Pablo O'Hannah, you have a brass neck that put Angela Rayner to shame. You stood there in the Reform UK conference blaming Brexit for the current small boats crisis that's obliterating the Labour Party. What have you been drinking?
Well, how else would you like to account for the fourfold increase in illegal immigration since we left the EU?
OK, Pablo, thank you very much for joining us. We're going to come back, of course, to the Reform Conference throughout the rest of the day. I always enjoy your company. I sincerely do. Pablo O'Hannah, thank you for joining us there live from the Reform UK Conference in Birmingham. A huge day in politics, and we're just getting started. We understand shortly after the top of the hour, we're going to go back to Downing Street. Chris Hope has some huge breaking news for us. He's just getting that teed up. A day of high political drama. There is still plenty of steam left in this one today. Yeah, David Lammy, the new Deputy Prime Minister. Angela Rayner, gone. Liz Kendall, gone. Lucy Powell, gone. Ian Murray, gone. Sir Keir Starmer has deported more ministers than he has illegal immigrants back to France. It's a huge day in politics, and we're just getting warmed up. Stick with us on GB News, but first, here's your weather forecast.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Odd shower for some during the rest of the day, but most places will be dry with increasingly clear spells, particularly across England and Wales. High pressure building from the south, keeping us largely settled heading into the weekend following what has been a very wet start to September. But that isn't to say it's going to be completely dry. We do still have some showers to talk about, mostly towards the west and northwest of the UK. These tending to be light, they'll move on quickly enough. And for many, it is dry overnight with clear spells. The lengthiest clear spells for the Midlands, the south and southeast of England, northeast Scotland as well, where we do have clear skies overnight, temperatures dipping into the low double figures or high single figures. A few mist patches forming by dawn into the southeast of England, for example, but they'll disappear soon enough. Across Wales and the southwest, some patchy cloud to begin things. Northern England also areas of cloud floating around, but the cloudiest place most likely Northern Ireland, where there will be some light showers, and there'll also be a scattering of light showers across parts of Scotland, particularly towards the west and southwest. Best of any brightness early on the far north of Scotland. Now, Saturday is looking fine for many. A lot of bright weather around, particularly towards the east, where there'll be spells of sunshine. In the west, increasingly cloudy skies, particularly later on, and a freshening breeze. That's going to make it feel a little cooler, but that breeze coming from the south will import higher temperatures, 24 Celsius likely in the southeast. And then we get into Saturday night, and with that mild source of air, it's going to be a mild night for many, with temperatures in the mid-teens in places. But Sunday starts off largely dry. However, we do have an area of rain moving in from the west, and it's going to be an unsettled week next week.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A85 is currently closed in both directions near Cruachan Power Station due to a road traffic collision. Motorists are recommended to seek alternative routes. On the M6, 2 westbound at junction 27, a broken down vehicle has closed one of 3 lanes. In Norfolk, between the A1270 and the A1064, congestion has built up, with expected 10-minute delays. On the trains, Greater Anglia is facing disruptions between Cheshunt and Bishop Stortford, while London North Western Railway has a reduced service between Bletchley and Bedford. Stay up to date at gbnews.com for more travel news.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
It's our biggest Great British giveaway to date. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas and has all of the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that any adventures you take in your new motorhome are taken in style. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News, anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
What an afternoon it's been already, and we're just getting started. It's 5 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting for you live across the UK and bringing you all of the very latest news, debate and political carnage coming up on the show today. Angela Rayner has been erased. Labour's under fire. Deputy leader Angela Rayner has finally been forced to resign for breaching the ministerial code. She blamed the media. The defenders blame snobbery. But in the end, Ms Reeves simply ran out of road and ran out of excuses. What does this mean next for a Labour Party seemingly in complete meltdown? Keir Starmer has commenced a major reshuffle of his cabinet, and it's continuing throughout the rest of the show. Already, the House of Commons leader, Lucy Powell, being sacked. David Lammy appointed the new Deputy Prime Minister, and a whole string of others. We'll bring you a full update, and there's still more to come yet. We'll be live back on Downing Street with our man Chopper throughout the rest of the show. Also on today's show.
And say, you are the last chance we've got to get this country back on track. We are the last chance the country's got to get this country back on track.
And as the storm waves batter into Downing Street, the turquoise tidal wave sweeps into Birmingham. And at the Reform Conference this afternoon, Nigel Farage roared, "We're all ships rising on a turquoise tide, heading towards winning the next general election in 2027. We'll cross back live from Brum and we'll speak to the Red Wall Rottweiler, Lee Anderson. We've had so much politics time today. We haven't even had time for our news headlines. So let's get some news headlines now with Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you very much indeed, Martin. Good afternoon to you. Plenty of breaking news around. Let's get you up to date with our top stories. A major cabinet reshuffle underway at Downing Street after Angela Rayner quit the government. She's been replaced as Deputy Prime Minister by David Lammy, who will move from Foreign Secretary to become the Justice Secretary. Now, it's understood the outgoing Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, will replace Yvette Cooper as Home Secretary, with Miss Cooper replacing Mr Lammy at the Foreign Office. It is understood outgoing Environment Secretary Steve Reid will replace Angela Rayner as the Housing Secretary. We're live outside Downing Street. In other developments, Lucy Powell sacked as Leader of the Commons. Ian Murray no longer Secretary of State for Scotland. Our political editor, Chris Hope, is live at number 10 and he will be there for us for any further developments. Well, earlier today, Ms Rayner quit as Deputy Prime Minister, Housing Secretary and Deputy Labour Leader after an investigation found she should have paid more stamp duty on a flat in Hove. Ms Rayner said she deeply regretted the decision not to seek specialist tax advice. The Prime Minister's independent ethics advisor, Sir Laurie Magnus, said she was in breach of the ministerial code despite having acted with integrity. In a handwritten letter, Sir Keir Starmer told Angela Rayner he was very sad her time in government had come to an end and he had nothing but admiration for her. The Conservative Party chairman, Kevin Hollingrake, however, said she only admitted wrongdoing because of media scrutiny.
I don't think she had any choice. I think the most damning aspect of this, if you look at what the independent advisor said, is this only came to light because of intense public scrutiny. It wasn't because Angela Rayner held her hands up to this. So I think she had no choice. I think it leaves the Labour Party in a complete mess. It leaves questions that need to be answered by Keir Starmer, what he knew and when.
Well, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage says Angela Rayner's resignation over her tax affairs screams to entitlement. Speaking at the party's annual conference, Mr Farage said he brought his speech forward after the Deputy Prime Minister's resignation, which demonstrates, he says, the government is deep in crisis and not fit to govern. He says Sir Keir Starmer's cabinet is full of wholly unqualified people.
From being the Housing Secretary and avoiding £40,000 of council tax, and it screams to entitlement. It screams to a government that, despite all the promises that this would be a new, different kind of politics, is as bad, if not worse, than the one that went before.
And we said our deputy political, or our political editor, Chris Hope, is live at Downing Street. Let's get the latest.
OK, Shabana Mahmood is arriving. Shabana Mahmood is arriving right now. She is the Home Secretary. Let's look to her arriving. Ms Mahmood, can you stop the boats? How will you do it? How will you empty these hotels of asylum seekers, Shabana Mahmood? How can you do better than Yvette Cooper, Ms Mahmood? There we have it, that's Shabana Mahmood arriving. She is a new Home Secretary, replacing, of course, Yvette Cooper. And I've been trying to ask her there how on earth her arrival in that key role, I think, for the government will do any better than the one by Yvette Cooper, when, of course, 50,000 people set to arrive here this year, a record, of course, and emptying those asylum hotels, a huge issue for this government. Can Shabana Mahmood do any better?
Well, Chris, it's no doubt the toughest job of them all at present. Rishi Sunak couldn't stop the boats. It did for him. Sir Keir Starmer's completely failed to smash the gangs. He's in a right old pickle about that. Nigel Farage said earlier on in Birmingham he will stop the boats within 2 weeks. A bold claim, but of course it's easy to say these things in opposition. Chris Hope, it's just after 5 p.m. It's been a massive, massive day in politics. Let's try and bring our viewers and listeners up to speed from the beginning if we can. Way back in the midst of time, it feels like now. Angela Rayner, of course, was the first to tumble earlier on today. Chris, try and bring us up to speed about what's been a huge, huge day there in Downing Street.
Well, my day started in Birmingham, Martin, when I was reporting on the Reform UK Party conference and quickly hightailed it here when it was clear that Angela Rayner was likely to lose her job over the issue of avoiding, by her own admission, tens of thousands of pounds worth of stamp duty. That means she has gone as the Deputy Prime Minister and the Housing Secretary. That happened at lunchtime at midday. By then, Poppy Gustafsson, who was an Investment Minister, she has gone. Shortly after that, we heard that Lucy Powell, she was leader of the House of Commons. She was sacked by Sir Keir Starmer, and Ian Murray was reportedly sacked. Of course, he issued a statement saying he was sad to be losing his job as Scottish Secretary. Other roles unfilled in government are the Homelessness Minister and those in the Net Zero Department. But that was really almost the hors d'oeuvre, the amuse-bouche, before the real changes happened within the past hour, when the big offices of state have had a kind of musical chairs. You've got Shabana Mahmood going from the Justice Department to the Home Office. You've got the Home Secretary, as was Yvette Cooper, going to the Foreign Office, where David Lammy is, and David Lammy going to be Justice Secretary and, crucially, being made Deputy Prime Minister. So a lot of changes going on. Elsewhere around that, there are a lot of changes which will mean a lot to our viewers. We understand that Pat McFadden, who was in the Cabinet Office, a veteran of the Tony Blair government, he's taking over a super ministry, including work and pensions and the skills remit of the Department for Education. That is quite a clever move, I think. He's an operative who knows his way around Whitehall, and the big problem this government's got is getting as many as 6 million people off benefits and into work. They're now bringing those two jobs together under Pat McFadden. That makes sense. I'm hearing reports that Steve Reid will become the new Housing Secretary. That also is quite a good move, I think. He's a former councillor, worked for Lambeth Council, knows how to get planning permissions through, knows how to deal with local councils. He's almost one of them, Steve Reid, in terms of dealing with other elected councillors. That makes a degree of sense. So a lot happening. We still don't know, though, a lot of the jobs which we knew were open at the start of by lunchtime, they haven't been filled yet. A quite extraordinary rebooting of this government. Musical chairs are the very top jobs, but a lot others below that moving around. It would be a test of any authority of any Prime Minister, but Sir Keir Starmer especially.
Chris, that's a very interesting one you mentioned there about Steve Reid. Of course, he was the Minister for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs and oversaw the inheritance tax calamity around farmers. A lot of farmers didn't see head and a tail of Steve Reid. In fact, they chased him around the country in tractors, barricading him inside various speaking appointments. No doubt he'll be glad to be rid of that post. Who on earth can fill those shoes? A very unenviable position. Musical chairs, or is it musical deck chairs on the Titanic? Chris Hope, no doubt we're coming back to you later in the show as the drama continues to unfold there. Whereas in many ways has become something of a nightmare on Downing Street for Sir Keir Starmer. Let's move on now. Bring in my next guest, a property expert, great friend of the show, all-round expert, in fact, and top gentleman, Russell Quirk, who's also at the Reform Conference. Russell, welcome to the show. A pleasure to have your company. You're live there in Birmingham, inside the belly of the beast, as it were. We see a calamity on Downing Street. Tell us about the mood there in Birmingham.
Well, the mood was pretty chipper anyway, Martin, frankly, as you can imagine. I mean, thousands of people here, a rousing speech from Nigel Farage, a defection, of course, for Nadine Dorries taken to the stage earlier on too. And the real icing on the cake and the cherry on the icing, frankly, is, of course, the news that, as was inevitable, Angela Rayner, of course, has had to fall on her sword, resigning rather than being fired. Although I don't think Keir Starmer, despite the fact that I think we've had 11 front bench members of this government resign over the course of this government so far, so in just 12 or 13 months, almost one a month. Not one of them has been sacked, of course. They've all resigned, which I think is testimony to the weakness of Keir Starmer. And now, of course, as I'm sure we're going to come on to, we have the spectacle of this new cabinet, which is not exactly a star chamber of talent, Martin, is it?
Yeah, I think the one that's really raised eyebrows is the appointment of David Lammy as the Deputy Prime Minister. Of course, not the Deputy Leader. That will be thrown to the membership. That's been confirmed to us this afternoon. That could be a lengthy process and another headache potentially for Keir Starmer if the left of the party try and mobilise a candidate that Keir Starmer won't like. But I was remarking with only a slim sense of irony earlier on, Russell Quirk, that Sir Keir Starmer has deported more ministers than he's deported illegal immigrants back to France.
Well, exactly. I suspect that the David Lammy appointment is not so much a promotion to being Deputy Prime Minister, but more trying to get him out of the way in terms of him being a rather hapless and hopeless Foreign Secretary. Let's be honest, this is the man that turned up to a meeting at the White House in Washington a few months ago wearing trainers. That is the calibre of David Lammy, a man, of course, famous for him remarking on the fact that police officers don't seem to exist in a particular area, only for the police to be walking around behind him as he said exactly that. So, again, talent is not exactly David Lammy's middle name. So I suspect this is more a strategic manoeuvre by Keir Starmer just to get David Lammy out of the way.
Can I get your thoughts on, of course, you're a property expert. We've just heard Steve Reid is replacing Angela Rayner as the housing minister. Steve Reid no doubt will be glad to see the back of his previous position, where, of course, he was taking care of rural affairs, farming, overseeing that disastrous inheritance tax hike. Do you think Steve Reid, a former councillor, has what it takes to try and take control of the housing market?
Is that a serious question, Martin? No, of course not. I mean, look how he's handled the family farm tax. Look, if we think that he's going to be adept and capable when it comes to building enough homes, bearing in mind this government have set out plans for 350,000 homes per year, so 1.5 million homes over this parliament. By the way, in their first year, they've barely built 150, so they're already playing catch-up to the tune of 200,000 homes that they haven't built in the first year of this government. So, look, I'm afraid, look, not only does Steve Reid not have exactly successful credentials in his previous role, but it's simply not going to happen. There is an argument, of course, is that if we didn't have a kind of downed drawbridge when it comes to uncontrolled immigration, that we might not need those 350,000 homes to be built each year in any case. But regardless, the government have set their stall out. They now intend to build on, for instance, Middle England, Green Belt, precious protected land in order to meet that target. But I'm afraid, regardless of that and the injustice of that, they're still not going to get anywhere near the target, whether they have Steve Reid as Housing Secretary or not.
Russell Quirk, politics is all about momentum, it's all about excitement. Tell us, what's the mood like in the camp there in Birmingham today amongst the Reform faithful? What's the mood on the ground?
Well, honestly, Martin, I can tell you that not just in the main hall where, of course, the great and the good of reform are taken to the stage and, delivering their rousing speeches. I've spent the last 2 hours just literally
Russell
walking
Quirk, we have
around
to
the hall
interrupt.
here,
Nigel
seeing
Farage is currently speaking. Beg your pardon.
Boring, boring, boring. I don't know what took them so long. But I decided there had to be a legacy for British politics. And my inspiration was the man you've just heard from, Preston Manning, who set up the party, and just ignore them. Just ignore them. Boring, boring, boring. Well, I don't know. She looked like she'd been on the sauce all afternoon. I don't know. I haven't been, I can assure you. And that was why I chose the name Reform. I saw what they'd done in Canada. It was transformational. They took it over. They destroyed the existing Progressive Party. They won government and put Canada back on the right track. I thank Preston for coming with his wife all the way from Canada. And, oh dear. You don't look very well. You're not looking very well. I think go easy, go easy. She's clearly got some anger management issues. In fact, she looks like one of the Democrats I faced on Capitol Hill the other day. They were having a few sort of Farage derangement syndromes. Maybe she's a supporter of David Lammy, I don't know. Our new Deputy Prime Minister, aren't we lucky? All that has happened today is Keir Starmer literally has rearranged the chairs on the Titanic. Today will go down. Today will go down as the beginning of the end of this Labour government, and thank goodness. So, mark the contrast between a Conservative Party that doesn't know what it is, a Labour Party in collapse, a country that has been let down by both of them, a country that is sinking fast, and we all know it, to our bitter regret. And mark and contrast that compared to what is happening in this hall today, what is happening in our movement. And we are where the energy is. We are where the optimism is. I hope you're having a great conference. Now, do you know what's coming at 8 o'clock? The entertainment at 8 o'clock. They've flown in from America. We've got the Jacksons at 8 o'clock. It's going to be a huge party this evening, joy and fun. I hope many of you stay, and I'll see a lot of you tomorrow. But I am not the final act of today. We have on after me a very famous international comedian who moonlights as a Member of Parliament. I'll let David Bull. Hasn't David done a great job? And I will let David Bull introduce our final speech of the day. And can I just say and repeat what I said earlier, how proud I am to lead a movement like this. Thank you.
Okay, that was Nigel Farage speaking for a second time at the Reform Conference, but really the events in the crowd are what will surely make the headlines there. When we cut back there were at least 3 protesters in the crowd that attempted to heckle Nigel Farage as he spoke. We saw incredible footage there of them being manhandled out by security, physically carried out at a rate of knots, it has to be said. They were dealt with very, very swiftly, and the Reform crowd supporters themselves aiding and abetting that, shoving them out of the way. No doubt this will create a huge amount of headlines. Is that freedom of speech being curtailed? Is it actually dealing with the potential threat live in the crowd? We see these clowns set up at all sorts of party conferences, and from my point of view, I don't think I've been consistent in saying these idiots have no place at party conferences. We don't know who they are, we don't know what their motives are, we don't know if they're armed, we don't know if they're dangerous, and I think that kind of imbecility has absolutely no place in politics. My guest in the studio with me now, Peter Edwards, no doubt may disagree. We watched that together. What was your thoughts on how that was dealt with there?
There's no place for physical intimidation in politics, and I was glad to see that the protesters got nowhere near the person speaking, which is what we saw happen at Labour conference. As I understand it, anyone who goes to any party conference, left or right, goes through a scanner, so there's a chance to check for anything nasty. But if they're only armed with words, That's a different matter. We have to keep in mind the difference between physical intimidation and threats, which is why you have police and security, and Farage has a lot of security, and people just using words, which is juvenile and irritating.
But how do you know? How do you know, Peter Edwards? Nigel Farage, undeniably, is one of the most targeted people in politics, and he has a security detail now. It's an ugly business. You know, he's so concerned about his safety, he doesn't hold surgeries in his constituency. Is it really acceptable? You don't know what these people are going to do. You don't know what their motives are. Why take the chance? And actually, does that not send out a message? And again, I've been consistent. When people raided the stage and threw glitter on Sir Keir Starmer, I call those people imbeciles. There's no time for any of this nonsense anymore. Politics is too dangerous to put up with these cretins.
Martin, you've got to be clear. There are two different things we're talking about. Getting near to a politician where you can physically intimidate them or cause harm to them is unacceptable in any party conference. And that's why we have scanners. But you can't stop any member of the public faking their support for a party or joining a member if they're then bent on disruption. You know, you don't want to see it, but how's it eradicated?
But, you know, I put it to you again. No doubt, when that was happening, then you and I were having a conversation, you were saying this is going to reflect bad upon Reform UK. Not only, you said there's a baying crowd. I put it to you, I think a lot of people look at that and think it's about time that these juveniles, you know, the likes of Just Stop Oil, Extinction Rebellion, Palestine Action, you know, whatever they are, it's about time these juveniles were just dragged out.
But Martin, you can't lump them all together. There is a difference between using words and unpleasant words, which we don't like, but is part of democracy, then people causing physical threats, and we've seen MPs threatened, we've seen them attacked, and very tragically, we've seen them murdered.
So why take the risk? Why take the risk that somebody in that crowd...
No one's advocating taking that risk. That's why you have scanners and police at every party conference.
But there's no telling. For example, somebody could have fluid in the... A bottle of water could be a bottle of something else. There are many, many ways that a politician, all people around them, could be attacked. And Lee Edwards, sorry, beg your pardon, Peter Edwards, we've got to leave it there. Lee Anderson's on stage.
What a great... Thank you, conference. As always, it is indeed a pleasure to stand here before the People's Army. And I know we got a few people thrown out a few minutes back. Imagine that, 55 quid to get thrown out. What a bunch of idiots. Jesus. Oh, it gets worse. David Lammy. It seems that all you've got to do to become the Deputy Prime Minister of this country is go on Mastermind and get every single question wrong. Jesus Christ. But you might not like this next bit. I've got to defend Angela Rayner. Because I've been told by a good friend of mine that she did actually get sound financial advice from her financial advisor, Diane Abbott. I want my country back. Do you want your country back? Well, you've come to the right place then. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming, because it has taken the hard work and sacrifice of millions of Brits throughout the centuries to make these small islands the greatest place in the world to live. It really has. But in just a few short years, useless, spineless career...
The polls.
OK, to Downing Street.
Can you deliver, Darren Jones?
There's Chopper.
OK, that's Darren Jones arriving. He, of course, is the Secretary for the Prime Minister. I said to him just then, can you deliver, Darren Jones? He said yes. So clearly, he's the person working at the top of the Cabinet Office. He is, according to a list of the shake-up of this government, I've just got here in my hand. He is the new Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. So he has replaced Pat McFadden, who is now the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions. The full list has been released by the government moments ago. I'll quickly run through it for you and for listeners, Martin, if I may. David Lammy is the Lord Chancellor and the Secretary of State for Justice, and also the Deputy Prime Minister. Darren Jones is now Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, replacing, of course, as we know, Pat McFadden. He will remain as the Chief Secretary, this new job given to him to deliver across Whitehall. Yvette Cooper, she is now the Foreign Secretary. She's due to be arriving at number 10 at some point today, we think. Shabana Mahmood, of course, formerly the Justice Secretary, replaces Yvette Cooper as at the Home Office, in charge of the small boats crisis and dealing with the problem of the asylum hotels. Steve Reed is now the Housing and Communities Local Government Secretary, replacing, of course, Angela Rayner, who arrived at midday after breaking the ministerial code over her tax affairs. Other moves too. Peter Kyle is now the Business and Trade Secretary. Of course, he was the Science Secretary. That job has gone to Liz Kendall, who formerly used to be the leader of the House of Commons. Emma Reynolds, she's been brought in, formerly of the Treasury, a Blairite minister back in the day. She is now the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs Secretary. And Douglas Alexander, a veteran of the last Labour government, he is now the Secretary of State for Scotland. Jonathan Reynolds is the Chief Whip. Those are the moves so far. Alan Campbell, he was the former Chief Whip, of course, and he was blamed by some for that catastrophic reverses the government felt from his own backbenches back in the summer. He is now leader of the House of Commons, and he will attend Cabinet. And to confirm, Angela Rayner, Lucy Powell and Ian Murray have all left the government. So it looks like we have the cabinet reshuffle completed, but there are other moves to more junior level, and we'll bring them to you as soon as we get them, Martin.
Okay, thank you, Chris Hope. Now let's bring a Conservative voice. I'm joined by the Conservative MP, Saki Bhatti. Welcome to the show. Can I get your opinion on today's reshuffle? Will it make a blind bit of difference?
Well, no, I don't think it will. It sounds like Keir Starmer's just rearranging the chairs on the deck of the Titanic. I mean, on Wednesday, I was calling for Angela Rayner to resign. This was obvious that she had breached the ministerial code. Keir Starmer decided to hide behind process rather than be a leader and make a decision. And I think now, as the facts have come out, it really does call into question his judgment. And actually, we haven't seen anything exciting or surprising. Rachel Reeves is still Chancellor. We still have huge amounts of issues with our economy created by the Labour Party. This Labour Party has been an absolute disaster for this country.
And it has to be said, certainly in GB Newsland, the appointment that's raised the most eyebrows is the elevation of David Lammy to Deputy Prime Minister. What's your take on Mr Lammy running the ship when Sir Keir Starmer's not the captain?
Well, to be honest, I thought, first of all, David Lammy was a terrible Foreign Secretary. When the Conservatives were in power, we were a serious player on the international landscape. We have been for, all throughout the 14 years that we were in power. And I reflected last time David Lammy was just at the dispatch box about the fact that actually he just turned us into a rule taker, two-bit player, and actually that's a huge problem. So it was obvious to me that he had to go. And actually, again, I talk about the Labour Party being damaging for this country domestically. They've weakened us internationally, and I think that now that he's Deputy Prime Minister, well, we'll be holding him to account, and the Justice Secretary, of course, where he's going to have to show some backbone and make sure he's tough on crime, because that's what we stand for.
Rishi Sunak, to be fair, couldn't stop the boat. Sir Keir Starmer hasn't yet been able to smash the gangs. Certainly Yvette Cooper couldn't. And it's a bitter irony that Sir Keir Starmer has deported more ministers than he has illegal immigrants back to France. Yet Shabana Mahmood is now being shipped in, as it were, to that post to try and smash the gangs. Do you have any faith that the Labour Party can stem the crisis at our borders?
Martin, the only people who can stem this is the Conservative Party. We're the only ones who have got a plan. We're the only ones who are working through our review policy around the European Convention on Human Rights. And whether it's Shabana or Yvette, who actually had done very little, all we were getting was a load of lip service. They got rid of our deterrent, and it's been a free-for-all for those gang smugglers, those gangs that Keir Starmer has completely failed to smash. So no, I have very little faith in them, and that's why we'll be making a very strong case to tackle illegal immigration.
Saqib, do you think you have a brass neck to mirror that of Angela Rayner herself, to come on the show and say only the Conservative Party can sort out a small boats crisis that sunk your party? You didn't stop it. in the same way King Canute could not stop the tide?
Martin, I don't, because I can be humble about the fact that we should have done better. And that's why when we've got new leadership, and we've actually, by the way, it's not just about new leadership, we've got a plan. We put a plan out when it came to the deportation bill, which I have to say Nigel Farage largely copied when he spoke a couple of weeks ago. And then we are now working through what it means to be out or in of the European Convention on Human Rights, because it is a complex issue. What will it mean for all the other pieces of legislation? And by the way, by us doing that, the other parties are following. Even Jack Straw now is talking about what it means to leave the ECHR and how it won't contravene the Good Friday Agreement. That's because we are doing the serious work, and everyone else knows they're going to have to come up with the answers.
OK, Saki Bhatti, thank you very much for joining us there, Conservative MP, and bring us a Tory voice. Appreciate your time, I really do. Let's get back to the studio. I'm still joined by the former editor of Labour List, Peter Edwards. Peter, let's look at the appointments now they're all in. Are you confident this is a team of top talent brimming with the experience necessary to sort out what is actually a country that many feel is going down the toilet?
Yeah, I'm sad Angela Rayner had to go, but I think it was clearly necessary, and it's worth noting that Sir Laurie Magnus, the Prime Minister's independent advisor on ethics, said she acted with integrity, even though she got it wrong. So I think we've ended up in the right place, sadly. All governments have reshuffles, and more broadly, I've got to push back at some of the overblown rhetoric I've heard in the last half an hour or so. You know, the Times did a very good graphic today showing the volume of ministerial departures under different prime ministers. This is nowhere near the level as that happened under Theresa May or Boris Johnson.
I think it is in the first year.
But well, it depends how you look at it. The numbers were much higher under Boris Johnson and Theresa May. I'm surprised at the scale of the reshuffle today once it became obvious that Angela Rayner was going this morning. But to pick one example, you know, Steve Reid to housing. Steve Reid was leader of Lambeth Council, which I think is one of the largest social landlords in the UK. As you indicated earlier, he's someone that really knows the housing sector, and I was really disappointed that Russell Quirk, who calls himself a property expert, just gave a purely partisan speech from Reform Conference. Steve Reid knows housing and he knows local government. And if your job is Minister of Housing, I think you'd be eminently qualified.
But I think the broader point is the immigration crisis is one that erodes every other area of public life, certainly housing. When we look at the numbers coming in, you can build 300,000 houses, you can build 1 million houses. If you can't control our borders, they'll simply be taken up by those arriving. And I put it to you as well, that Steve Reid will be delighted to see the back of his former post, Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. Has to be said, he was pretty unpopular amongst farmers of what was a huge calamity around the inheritance tax hike.
We'll have to wait and see. Clearly, it was a hugely tempestuous time for him as Environment Secretary. I think, you know, it was a very, very tough decision on inheritance tax for agricultural estates, but clearly that was agreed between the Treasury and the Environment Department led by Steve Reid. So I don't think it's about being glad to get away. I think Steve Reid is pretty competent and confident. There are some new junior ministers who've got promoted to the Cabinet now. You know, and again, I go to this point. There are always reshuffles under government, and a lot of the metaphors we've heard today about deck chairs and a tannic, blah, 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 these are the same old jokes. In most departments, the policies are not going to change too much because many of them were in the manifesto.
And that's the problem.
Well, I support the policies. Take the small boats, for example. You're right, that is a crisis, and it's pretty much the number one public concern, perhaps alongside cost of living, but slightly elbowing out the NHS. But, you know, some of your contributors are very down on Yvette Cooper, but we've got the agreement with France. We've got a new Borders Commissioner. It's only just started. It's only just started. You know, invite me back in a year's time and we'll have a view. It's only been going a matter of weeks.
Nobody's gone back.
It's working.
They were meant to already.
People have started to go back. It's a low number because it's only just begun. Remember, the Rwanda scheme was stuck at zero. The Rwanda scheme was just an idea with zero deportations.
That was then. This is now. And I put it to you that you can change the personnel, but the reason that Nigel Farage's Reform Party is stealing a march on small boats, on the borders, is that they're coming out with bold, radical plans, and all we hear from the Labour Party is more of the same. And it's patently ineffective, isn't it? The numbers are going up.
I was very interested to watch the scene from Reform. Clearly, you know, I don't believe in disrupting party conferences or yelling offensive comments from the sideline. But look what we happened today. I haven't heard in all the coverage a single Reform policy. What I've seen is a presidential figure in Nigel Farage putting on a high-vis suit like a game show host, giving 2 speeches that were brought forward and cracking down on dissent. It's a mini-me Trump. This, I think, could turn out to be the canary in the coal mine for Reform. Of course, it's been a bad day for Labour, and it'd be madness to say otherwise. But Nigel Farage, in a shiny blue suit, giving 2 speeches, cracking down on dissent like he's Trump or the president of Belarus. Come on.
I think you mean that as an attack, that Nigel Farage is like a mini Trump. I think many people in this country will actually say, we need somebody like a Donald Trump in this country. And I think the Labour Party are consistently tone deaf on this. I think you're getting it totally wrong.
Well, but look at the approval ratings. I think it was Ipsos Mori that polled it. Trump has net unpopular ratings in the United Kingdom. That's just a fact.
Meanwhile...
Cephalogically, Trump is unpopular.
Back in Britain, Sir Keir Starmer's popularity ratings have gone off the White Cliffs of Dover.
Yeah, they're pretty bad. Yeah, and you've got to be realistic and honest about it. But I think if we get the economy starting to pick up and the impact of the returns deal with France tackle small boats, that may change. But the first thing Labour has to do is be honest with itself. And I hope today could be the starting point for that. There's been a reshuffle, get the economy growing. We could be in different territory. I also think reality will begin to catch up with Reform, because for the last 5 years or so, they've had one single policy on small boats, no policy on the NHS or on growing the economy, or on house building.
Well, I think we're about to see some of that unroll. But Peter Rhodes, thank you very much for joining us in the studio today. Appreciate your time. Now, please stick with us. I'm Moss in Daubney on GB News. We're back live next in Birmingham. That man, Lee Anderson, still on stage. Hecklers tried to disrupt the party. They didn't succeed. That's next.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Odd shower for some during the rest of the day, but most places will be dry with increasingly clear spells, particularly across England and Wales. High pressure building from the south, keeping us largely settled heading into the weekend following what has been a very wet start to September. But that isn't to say it's going to be completely dry. We do still have some showers to talk about, mostly towards the west and northwest of the UK. These tending to be light, they'll move on quickly enough. And for many, it is dry overnight with clear spells. The lengthiest clear spells for the Midlands, the south and southeast of England, northeast Scotland as well, where we do have clear skies overnight, temperatures dipping into the low double figures or high single figures. A few mist patches forming by dawn into the southeast of England, for example, but they'll disappear soon enough. Across Wales and the southwest, some patchy cloud to begin things. Northern England also areas of cloud floating around, but the cloudiest place, most likely Northern Ireland, where there will be some light showers, and there'll also be a scattering of light showers across parts of Scotland, particularly towards the west and southwest. Best of any brightness early on the far north of Scotland. Now, Saturday is looking fine for many. A lot of bright weather around, particularly towards the east, where there'll be spells of sunshine. In the west, increasingly cloudy skies, particularly later on, and a freshening breeze. That's going to make it feel a little cooler, but that breeze coming from the south will import higher temperatures, 24 Celsius likely in the southeast. And then we get into Saturday night, and with that mild source of air, it's going to be a mild night for many, with temperatures in the mid-teens in places. But Sunday starts off largely dry. However, we do have an area of rain moving in from the west, and it's going to be an unsettled week next week.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back. It's 20 to 6. What a rock and roll day it's been in politics. Let's get straight back now to Chris Hope there, our man, political editor, live at Downing Street. Chris Hope, the government reshuffle now has been fully reshuffled. The big question is, will the public be shaken or stirred by it as the dust settles on what's been a hugely eventful day? Chris Hope, take us through the full reshuffle and tell us what you believe this means for the direction of the country.
That's right, Martin. An extraordinary day that started at midday when Angela Rayner resigned as Deputy Leader for breaking the ministerial code over a tax affair. She, of course, was Housing Secretary and Deputy Leader of the country, Deputy Prime Minister. Lucy Powell, she was sacked by the Prime Minister. She's the Commons Leader. Ian Murray, who was just yesterday up on the Clyde with Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, he was, left his job suddenly, apparently sacked by Sir Keir Starmer as Scotland Secretary. Other jobs to Investment Minister Poppy Gustafson, two other jobs yet to be filled in homelessness job and net zero. But the cabinet now, the reshuffle is now complete. We can now reveal it to you. David Lammy is the new Lord Chancellor, of course, and the Secretary for Justice. He was formerly the Foreign Secretary, and crucially, he's the Deputy Prime Minister. This means whenever the PM can't be there for Prime Minister's questions, David Lammy will answer the questions, not Angela Rayner anymore. Darren Jones, he is the new Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. He will remain as the Chief Secretary, a new delivery job for the government, for the Prime Minister. That's a key role. Deliver, 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 as I shouted to him before. In fact, when he arrived here moments ago, I said to him, can you deliver? And he laughed and said, yes, we'll wait and see. Yvette Cooper, the former Home Secretary, now is going to be the Foreign Secretary. She tried and failed to stop the boats. 50,000 arriving probably this calendar year, a record number, and a new blood, new name to try and take over that role. It's Shabana Mahmood. She formerly was the Justice Secretary. She's now the Home Secretary. She's arrived too, and I've been saying to her on camera, can you stop the boat, Shabana Mahmood? Well, no answer yet, but she'll try to, of course. Steve Reid, he's a former Environment Secretary. He's the new Housing Secretary. Get that planning bill through the House of Lords. Get those new homes built. Pat McFadden, he's now the Work and Pension Secretary with a bit of skills too. A key job is to get 6 million people off benefits and into work. Pat McFadden, an old Whitehall warhorse who worked through the Tony Blair government, he could do it for the government. Peter Kyle, he's now the Business Secretary, replacing, surprisingly, Jonathan Reynolds. Many thought Jonathan Reynolds had a good year with all these various trade deals agreed with India, with the US, and with the European Union. That didn't count for anything. He's out of a job, and he's moved to a different role. Liz Kendall, she's now the Science Minister. She of course, formerly was at Work and Pensions. Emma Reynolds, a new name there. She's now in charge of the environment, food and rural affairs. Crucially, she'll probably be in charge when the new inheritance tax changes come in for farmers. We know how unpopular that made Steve Reid, of course. And Jonathan Reynolds, yeah, he was formerly the Business Secretary. He's now the Chief Whip and a member of the Cabinet. It's his job to try and get the programme of work through Parliament. And Sir Alan Campbell, the former Chief Whip, he becomes the Leader of the House of Commons who can attend Cabinet. As I said there, Angela Rayner, Lucy Powell, Ian Murray have all left the government. Those three big names there from the Cabinet. All other Cabinet Ministers stay in post. You might be wondering, where is Ed Miliband's name? He remains in that job, Martin. He may not be popular amongst those on the right, but he remains in that job in charge of our net zero policies.
And meanwhile, Chris Hope, back in Birmingham, protesters take into the arena there. At least 3 were manhandled out by security, carried out by security. Nigel Farage crying, boring, 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 as they were dragged out. And I have to say, do you think that this will cause a debate in the wider body politic? Peter Edwards from the Labour list here was saying this is a terrible way to handle them. They were manhandled out by the scruff of their neck. They were carried out. I wonder, actually, if people are sick to the back teeth of this kind of juvenile nonsense, Chris Hope. And by the way, for consistency, I was saying all along, like when people were throwing glitter at Sir Keir Starmer, these idiots have no place trying to jump on stages, trying to disrupt politics, or is the Reform Party in America on Wednesday talking about free speech, now suppressing free speech? What's your take?
I don't think that'll damage Nigel Farage at all. I mean, he's always existed against something else, hasn't he? He exists against people trying to shout him down. He shouted boring, boring, boring. That's actually what Nigel Farage often says to demonstrators trying to shout him down. He won't mind having protesters there. It's enlivened proceedings. No one was hurt. It's all part of the waft and wane, I think, of our democracy. I was there 2 years ago when there was a demonstration during the Tory party conference. Before that, I remember a comedian giving a P45 to Theresa May, of course, when the letters started falling off the screen at her party conference. Before that, I can remember when an elderly individual was shouting at Tony Blair over the Iraq War. This always happens. It's fine. I think it shows these people exist to make their case, make an argument, and I think it won't damage Nigel Farage at all.
We're just seeing footage on our screens now, Chris. I appreciate you can't see that down Street of the incidents, and I thought actually it was very, very swiftly dealt with by security. And Chris Hope, you know as well as I that Nigel Farage now has to take security very, very seriously. When these people get inside an arena, Chris Hope, there's no telling what their motives are. There's no telling if they're armed. And, you know, the metal detectors, the security at huge arenas like this aren't always able to intercept any kind of threat. And, of course, Nigel Farage will take this in his stride, and he was laughing on stage. But the crowd themselves, the security here, we can see were ripping these protesters away, and they were manhandled out, they were carried out, I've got to say, at full pace, more effectively than a nightclub drunk, no doubt tossed out onto the street. A lot of people watching this, Chris Hope, saying, about time these imbeciles were dealt with like this.
Yeah, I think that's the risk you take. I mean, I don't know the background of these individuals. They may have joined the party and therefore get access to it. There is a degree of security, I should say, in Birmingham, and so that, I'm sure they went through that. But of course, there are concerns all the time when people get near Nigel Farage and haven't been vetted. What are their motives? As it turns out, it was a protest.
OK, you've been superb today, Chris Hope, down there in Downing Street, hot-footing it back from Birmingham to bring us all the latest on a hugely dramatic day and that reshuffle there on Downing Street. A brief pause. You've been searching some holiday sun this year. Here's the forecast of some of the top European destinations. Whew.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Low pressure to the west of the UK may drag in some breezy conditions around coasts of Portugal. Otherwise, it's mostly fine and settled across much of Europe. Here's this area of low pressure bringing in those breezy conditions around coasts of western Portugal, northwestern parts of Spain, potentially bringing in some cloud, perhaps some light outbreaks of rain later into the day. But as we move our way eastwards across the Mediterranean, we can see it's mostly dry, settled, plenty of sunshine. That theme continues over the weekend, along with the warm sunshine.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Bev, I'm so sad that you're leaving Britain, but so excited that you're going to go and conquer the United States of America.
Congratulations on this fantastic posting, and I hope you have a fantastic time on your big political adventure in Washington, D.C.
And I just know this is your time, this is your place, America is your place. You are going to shine.
Yeah, Bev, you are going to absolutely smash it. America, be ready for Bev Turner.
I'm actually not even going to say good luck. You don't need it.
You're going to bring Washington down like a storm, bringing us the inside track of everything.
It's the reconquest of America. You are going where Columbus went before, and remember that the English are best.
We're really, really excited about GB News America, and you are the perfect person to be fronting it. We can't wait to watch you, although it's going to be so hard not seeing you in the studio.
Yeah, we're going to miss you hugely, Bev. We know you are absolutely going to smash it. You're going to have them on the run.
Good luck to you. You won't need it because you're a legend. We saw that at Turnberry, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in just a few weeks. Love ya. Wow.
Well, it's been a ball, Bev. Nobody could say it's been dull, eventful, unpredictable, erratic. We've not always seen eye to eye, but it has been a great experience for me, and my loss is America's gain. So the very best of luck to you.
Oh, that was quite emotional. I got quite tearful then.
Well, the people are very fond of you, but great outpouring of love and affection and admiration for what you're going to do.
And I'm going to, honestly, I'm not leaving GB News. Let's just be clear. I am going to be hosting a show Monday to Thursday. You're going to be seeing me all over every show. Hopefully, I'll be popping up here and there. I'll do some exclusive bits for Andrew here. I'll send
Thought you'd say.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. We're approaching the end of the show. It's 5:52. Let's just get that footage on screen now. There was a protest at the Reform Party conference in Birmingham a short while ago. At least 3 protesters, you can see on your screens now, were manhandled out of the arena, and the security guards got them very quickly. You can see them now. They're being carried out faster than a sailor on shore leave. They're absolutely being ripped out of that arena, and you can see Reform supporters themselves joining in, shoving the hecklers away. Nigel Farage on stage there in his Reform-coloured suit, shouting, boring, boring, boring. A lot of people are saying this is meant to be a party of free speech, clamping down on people trying to exercise their democratic right to speak, but the vast majority of people do not subscribe to that view at all. Let's get a few comments now, some of the more printable ones, that is. Arrest a lot of these people. They are scumbags. Imagine paying 80 quid to get into the Reform conference only to get carried out. Who do these crybabies think they are? They have no right to stop other people speaking. It's about time they were treated like this. The crazies are rattled. The lefties are a huge problem in this country. They cannot stand other people's point of view. Other people saying Nigel Farage looks like a game show host in his suit. And a few other comments on the broader issues. The only gang that's been smashed today is Sir Keir Starmer's own cabinet. He's deported more of them than he's managed to deport illegals back to France. What a quiet day it's been. There hasn't been a quiet news day in British politics since Rishi Sunak called a general election back in May 2024. Today has been an absolutely white-knuckled rollercoaster ride. Dawn Neeson has already done 3 hours earlier on today. She's had a quick few hours off. She's back now. Dawn, nothing at all has happened in the last few hours. I don't know what you're going to talk about. Over to you.
Martin, not sure what to talk about, to be honest with you, but we are going to have a go. We have got an amazing show. We've got Matt Goodwin, hot-footed it live down to London from Birmingham for us. And we are also talking the first ever Home Secretary who thinks you can grow your own cervix. Lots more to come. You don't want to miss it. All the live breaking news on Reform, on Farage and on Angela Rayner. We'll see you very soon.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Odd shower for some during the rest of the day, but most places will be dry with increasingly clear spells, particularly across England and Wales. High pressure building from the south, keeping us largely settled heading into the weekend following what has been a very wet start to September. But that isn't to say it's going to be completely dry. We do still have some showers to talk about, mostly towards the west and northwest of the UK. These tending to be light, they'll move on quickly enough, and for many it is dry overnight with clear spells. The lengthiest clear spells for the Midlands, the south and southeast of England, northeast Scotland as well, where we do have clear skies overnight, temperatures dipping into the low double figures or high single figures. A few mist patches forming by dawn into the southeast of England, for example, but they'll disappear soon enough. Across Wales and the southwest, some patchy cloud to begin things. Northern England also areas of cloud floating around, but the cloudiest place most likely Northern Ireland, where there will be some light showers, and there'll also be a scattering of light showers across parts of Scotland, particularly towards the west and southwest. Best of any brightness early on the far north of Scotland. Now, Saturday is looking fine for many. A lot of bright weather around, particularly towards the east, where there'll be spells of sunshine. In the west, increasingly cloudy skies, particularly later on, and a freshening breeze. That's going to make it feel a little cooler, but that breeze coming from the south will import higher temperatures, 24 Celsius likely in the southeast. And then we get into Saturday night, and with that mild source of air, it's going to be a mild night for many, with temperatures in the mid-teens in places. But Sunday starts off largely dry. However, we do have an area of rain moving in from the west, and it's going to be an unsettled week next week.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. The A77 southbound at Holmeston roundabout is restricted due to a broken down vehicle, so please approach with caution. On the M3, the eastbound entry slip at junction 4A is closed due to another broken down vehicle. Moving to the A1 southbound near Gateshead, there is congestion between the A696 and the A184 with expected delays of 20 minutes. M6 southbound in Wigan at exit slip junction 26 faces a 10-minute delay. Meanwhile, the M11 southbound between junction 6 and 4 has congestion with delays expected. And on the trains, expect disruption between Cheshunt and Bishop Stortford. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
It's our biggest Great British giveaway to date. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas and has all of the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that any adventures you take in your new motorhome are taken in style. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hello, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Dawn Neeson and you are watching Jubes & Co. Thank you for your company. It has been one hell of a big Friday in politics, hasn't it? The Prime Minister has carried out a major reshuffle. Rayner is out, David Lammy is in as Deputy PM and Yvette Cooper is now Foreign Secretary. Are you keeping up at the back there? Plus, Reform UK's conference kicked off today. Leader Nigel Farage says their party is on the rise whilst making some big promises.
We will stop the boats within 2 weeks of winning government.
Well, do you think the party is up to it? And meanwhile, Britain is heading to civil war because of the rise of radical Islam. That is according to Donald Trump's former aide. What do you make of that one? And over half of you would back prison-style camps for illegal migrants, apparently. Brilliant panel for you tonight who are agreeing on absolutely nothing, which is good news for all of us. Matt Goodwin, pollster and academic, and James Schneider, former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn. But first, let's get those latest news headlines for you.
Well, thank you very much, Dawn. Good evening to you. Our top stories. A major cabinet reshuffle has been taking place at Downing Street after Angela Rayner quit the government. She's been replaced as Deputy Prime Minister by David Lammy, who's also been made the Justice Secretary. Yvette Cooper leaves the Home Office to replace Mr Lammy at the Foreign Office, with the outgoing Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, appointed to replace Miss Cooper as the new Home Secretary. Steve Reid will take over Angela Rayner's former housing brief after he previously served as the Environment Secretary. Well, in other news, Lucy Powell has been sacked as the Leader of the Commons, while Ian Murray is no longer Secretary of State for Scotland. Our political editor, Chris Hope, standing by at Downing Street for further developments. Earlier today, Miss Rayner quit as Deputy Prime Minister, Housing Secretary and Deputy Labour Leader after an investigation found she should have paid more stamp duty on a flat in Hove. Ms Rayner said she deeply regretted the decision not to seek specialist tax advice. The Prime Minister's independent ethics advisor said Ms Rayner was in breach of the ministerial code, despite having acted with integrity. In a handwritten letter, Sir Keir Starmer told Angela Rayner he was very sad her time in government had come to an end and he had nothing but admiration for her. Nigel Farage says there's every chance of a general election in 2027.